Thank you. We're now live. Good afternoon and welcome to this virtual meeting of the Borough Council. Whilst we are now familiar with our virtual meeting format, I would just like to highlight a few points as a brief reminder and for the benefit of the public who may be watching this live stream. Please keep your microphone muted when not speaking to avoid any background noise, and ensure that any other mobile devices are on silent or switched off. Please use the meeting chat to indicate your wish to speak, and I will invite you in at the appropriate time. Should my connection as chair be lost during the meeting, the Deputy Mayor will take over and a short adjournment may be called until the connection is resumed. Our thoughts and condolences go out to the Queen and the royal family on the sad death of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. Prince Philip has served Queen and country with great distinction and honour over a remarkable period of time. Since their marriage in 1947, he has been by the Queen's side and is to be commended for his role in supporting the Queen in her long reign. He has given a remarkable lifetime of service, and we will always remember him as someone whose duty to Queen and country always came first, and who carried out that duty in an impeccable fashion on every occasion. Please join me in a minute's silence as a mark of respect. Thank you. Before we move on, to deal quickly with the technical issue before the business for the meeting is started, you will be aware that under the terms of the Constitution, there is normally a requirement for members to stand when speaking, and that voting is usually by way of a show of hands. Obviously, these rules are impractical in a remote meeting, so can I propose that Council Procedure Rules 21.1 and 17.3 are disapplied for this meeting, so that standing is not required and voting will take place by way of a roll call if necessary. Could somebody please second the proposal?
I'm happy to second that proposal.
Thank you. So I assume we can approve this. Does anybody disagree? Thank you. Agenda item 1 is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Apologies from Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. And I believe
Madam Mayor, I've got an apology for Alec Brown. He'll be around in about half an hour. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quarterman. I'd just seen that on the message. Thank you very much. Any others? No. Okay, thank you. Item 2, to receive declarations of interest. As this is a virtual meeting, there is no form being circulated. Democratic Services hold a register of all interests declared by members. If you have an interest that is pertinent to a particular item of business on the agenda, I would ask you to declare it at the start of that relevant agenda item. Item 3, to confirm the accuracy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of February 2021. Could somebody propose the accuracy of those minutes, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Could somebody second those minutes, please?
Seconded,
Yes,
Madam Mayor.
I heard Councillor Glyn Nightingale there. Thank you. Are we all agreed to the accuracy of those minutes? Does anybody disagree? Thank you. Item 4, announcements. First of all, I would just like to thank everybody for their support in raising funds for my 2 chosen charities, which are Zoe's Place Baby Hospice and Eva Women's Aid. Without your support, it would be extremely difficult this year to raise money. And if anybody would like to make a donation, please contact the Mayor's office. Are there any announcements from the leader? Councillor Lanigan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, I'm just going to keep this as brief as I can because I know that we've got a full agenda today. COVID guidelines, it was fantastic to see more of our services and many businesses across the borough opening once again. The change in government guidelines meant libraries, leisure centres and youth clubs welcome people along with the pubs, cafes and restaurants, and of course our hairdressers and non-essential shops. Council officers will continue to work with businesses to ensure everything is done in line with guidance, and we will continue to keep our residents and visitors safe. We want to ensure the next stage of the roadmap can go ahead next month to bring more freedom to families and help our businesses to prosper. The vaccination rollout continues to be a success, and I'm pleased to tell members that Redcar and East Cleveland are the highest in the North East for vaccinations, which is absolutely a splendid effort. Although nationally supply issues have slowed, the rollout, the take-up in our boroughs has been amazing, as I've just explained to you. At the same time, the council is encouraging people to get tested, whether or not they have COVID symptoms. Around a third of people don't have any symptoms, and I'm sure that you're all aware of that, and unknowingly pass this virus on. The council is continuing to offer a testing service based on where and when our residents wish to attend, while we're also distributing the home testing kits to all those who are eligible to collect them. Business grants, the council is administering a new grant for businesses in our borough, which has been significantly impacted by COVID-19. The money will help the businesses which have not previously been eligible for COVID-related grants over the past 5 months. These grants are between 1,000 and 10,000 and hopefully will provide vital support until they can trade again normally. The council has issued more than £35 million to businesses in Redcar Cleveland, and it was a massive effort by our staff, which was done alongside their day jobs, and I thank them for that. Teaser Works continues to develop the site, which will provide thousands of highly qualified jobs for our families in Redcar Cleveland in the years to come. The first stage in realising the potential came with an agreement from GE Renewable Energy to build a state-of-the-art wind turbine manufacturing factory on site. The factory will supply Dogger Bank wind farm, which will become the largest offshore wind farm in the UK. Most importantly, the factory will create 750 jobs and a further 1,500 in supply chain. Attracting companies like GE demonstrates the huge potential of the Teaser Works site and will hopefully persuade other global companies that Redcar Cleveland should be their new home. Dorman Point ERF project is there. We're remediating the land at the moment, and that's expected that area will be built on and completed in May. Of course, the South Bank GE site, that's underway. The South Bank Quay, we're going detailed design and it's in procurement with contractors with a view to starting in August. I have got 4 other things about the Tees Works, but unfortunately at this moment in time, they are confidential, members, but I'm hoping that I can bring them to you at the next Borough Council meeting. The last item, Madam Mayor, is Eston Pool, and I know that we're going to discuss this later on, so I'll be brief with that and come in with further details when that discussion takes place. The Council did commission an independent survey to establish the current condition of the pool. The inspection report proposes 2 possible options to ensure that the pool is maintained in the area: demolition and replacing the existing facility, or even for full repair of that, has come in at an estimated £2.9 million. The structural inspection found significant deterioration of the building over the last years, and the work to repair this will be extremely expensive. The report concluded that due to the condition of the building, as well as the cost and limited design life of the repairs, it might not be feasible to demolish the building and construct it. It might be more feasible to demolish and build it to the building and construct a new pool. Eston swimming pool is a high-risk flood area, and the plant room has been flooded more than 3 times over the last 12 years. Repairs and maintenance costs to Eston Leisure Centre site over the last several years down there has actually cost the council £2.53 million, which included covering the flooding that happens there and all that equipment damaged. So I'll leave it there, Madam Mayor, because I know that we're going to discuss this further on, and I have got some further details that I will bring into that discussion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Are there any announcements from the Managing Director?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No announcements on this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've missed cabinet members. Sorry, we'll go back a step. Are there any reports from announcements from cabinet members?
No announcements.
Thank you. No. Thank you. Okay, item 6, questions from the public. There have not been any questions given. So we move on to item 7. 7 is reports from portfolio holders. And this afternoon we have the report of the Cabinet Member for Resources. This is a question and answer session. A period of 10 minutes will be set aside for questions afterwards. I'll hand over to Councillor Glyn Nightingale.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. This is the annual report of the Resources Directorate. It inevitably needs to be put into the context of global and national events over the past 12 months. Firstly, in the context of all that has happened over the past year, our corporate plan is in place and is being implemented. The Cabinet will soon be receiving a detailed corporate plan outturn report highlighting the progress being made to get things done. All of this is successfully helping us to fulfil our manifesto commitments to help those in need, to invest for the future and for local jobs, to improve the way the area looks and prepare for the recovery from the pandemic. Secondly, despite the most challenging times in the face of unprecedented constraints and uncertainty, due to the criminal cyber attack and the pandemic, the Resources Directorate has successfully not just supported the continuation of the council's services, where there's been a considerable drop in revenue coming into the council and uncertain future revenue streams, the Directorate has ensured that the council is still building for the future. Fundamentally, we are ending the financial year with a balanced budget without the need for stringent cuts. The reserves are moving in the right direction. The capital programme is on track. Government grants of around £14.3 million and support in kind to individuals and businesses required massive administration and deployment of council resources to ensure fair allocation. A simple and basic conclusion is that over the past 12 months, without Redcar and Cleveland Council, local businesses would have gone without money they needed to survive, and local residents would have suffered even more hardship. Once again, I think it's important that we should recognise and praise the work of staff and volunteers and thank them for their work. Thirdly, I want to highlight the wide range of activities the Resources Directorate has engaged in, often behind the scenes but essential to the working of the council. The collaborative work of the council's IT, HR and occupational health teams has been essential over the past year, especially in arranging so successfully and effectively for so many staff to work from home. This is linked with the implementation of the digitalisation plan, including the rollout of laptops for staff and even the use of e-pay slips. One essential and welcome fact is that the council's cyber resilience and IT provision for before and after the cyber attack received endorsement from national agencies and the auditors. This is no mean achievement in the context of the pandemic. As detailed in the report, the work of several teams within the Resources Directorate has progressed throughout the various lockdown and restrictions that we've had to experience, often under immensely challenging conditions. These include health and safety operations continued despite difficulties without working from home. Democratic Services staff have maintained a full calendar of meetings, compiled the electoral register and helped in the shielding hub and COVID testing. The registration service has adapted to restrictions, especially for weddings, and is working on changes to marriage schedules. And again, despite restrictions following a recruitment drive by the business support team, 30 young people have been appointed to apprenticeships. Next, the report provides extensive detail on the work of the communications and marketing team. I'm sure everyone will have appreciated all the information and assistance the council provided through the comms team during the pandemic. So a whole series of initiatives and projects, not least updates on restrictions, testing and vaccination programme, responding to residents' concerns, keeping in touch with vulnerable people, circulating information to staff and collaborating with central and public authorities in the region. The report gives particular focus to examples of extensive and successful use of contemporary media platforms for council-led action, campaigns and consultations, such as the revised waste collections, apprenticeship recruitment, the Regent development and various bits and projects across the council, such as the Loftus High Street bid, the Redcar Town Centre deal and Gizbert Town Hall, as well as issues of particular public concern such as mental health and fostering. In order to go one step ahead in ensuring excellent communication with the public, a new council website is in the process of being procured and will incorporate the most up-to-date technology available. I'm sure that members will overwhelmingly welcome this major initiative. In conclusion, Madam Mayor, it's overwhelmingly clear from this report and other major developments that the partnership is delivering on its promises. In a tough year with a global pandemic, the council has responded to unprecedented challenges, We have maintained essential services, we have balanced the budget, and we are delivering real change. Above all, staff, councillors and residents need to be applauded for their contribution to seeing us through the past 12 months. There have been trials and tribulations, but we've seen ourselves through in a commendable way, and I do commend this report to the Council.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale. So we now have a period of 10 minutes for questions and answers. Please keep your questions succinct and relating to matters within the report. I would like to bring in Councillor Quatermain, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Nightingale, for your report. And I would like to join you with thanking our officers and health workers, residents and everybody throughout this entire period, which has been a logistic nightmare. Please, can you advise in relation to your report what the difference is between the figure quoted on page 16 under 2.7, which states government funding schemes have totaled an estimated 14.3 million, and page 17, 2.11, that states 37.2 million of funding has been distributed to businesses. Regarding the cyber attack payout, and because of this huge shortfall of financial compensation, I would like to know more regarding the extent of the council's negotiation with the government, as well as your own and the council leaders' personal intervention over the past 14 months. You'll appreciate we have waited patiently to be compensated in full by the government, as they said in their initial exchange. Also, when we receive the 3.68 million, is there any intention to utilise all or part of it, or will it go straight into reserves? Regarding the council website, it has to some degree been described as not purpose. On closer examination, and I've done this myself, one of the worst functions is the search facility. For example, if residents are searching for a link for this meeting, it does not throw up the relevant document for information of how to watch this meeting. If you type in Borough Council meeting April 2021, for example, it provides two completely unrelated links. No matter what the combination of search inquiry, you cannot get to where you want to be using that function. I'm advised that the chat function, while responsive and friendly, can also steer you wrong. Links have been said to be working and can take a long time to resolve even the most simple of instructions. And in regard to engagement, your report mentions a lot to do with comms and IT and digitalisation. Because of the pandemic, there has been this virtual meeting opportunity, and over many months, residents, business owners, students and visitors from wherever have had the opportunity to learn more about local government, about these very interactions we're having here today, and about scrutiny and planning, etc. There's been a real opportunity to engage via social media and through the council calendar to provide links to meetings. This would have improved understanding, education, dispel misinformation, and encourage residents to become more involved in the process. All kinds of benefits. Today, even a Facebook or Twitter post could be sent out publicly with the link to this meeting so anyone could watch it live. Sadly, none of these opportunities have been taken up. Video links to meetings like this one can take months to be uploaded to YouTube, and there are no links to the footage on the website either. If they are, you're wasting your time anyway searching for them. The last borough council we had is still not uploaded for residents to observe, and the information and engagement like we're having today is no longer topical or of interest to them. So this needs to be addressed. Unfortunately, the wider public have no clue we're even meeting to discuss decisions today that affect them and their families. That could have been resolved. This is a failure to realise an opportunity born out of the restriction to meet face to face. We have not been serious about engaging and sharing knowledge with residents. As the Cabinet member, please can you address these points? Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Quatermain. Councillor Nightingale.
Right, first of all, I obviously share the objectives that Councillor Quatermain has mentioned about engaging people. I think in relation to the website, clearly that is the ultimate reason why we want to improve this, and we want to use the developments that have taken place in many councils throughout the country and use the government building blocks that are effectively going to make it a much smoother operation, and in fact will be cheaper to procure. The problem with the website, I think, is a long-standing one. I don't think this is anything new, and I certainly think it's important that we do investigate in the immediate period what the problems are that you've highlighted. Perhaps, you know, if you get in touch with Mr. Bullman, the IT Assistant Director, you can give him some details of these issues. On the point of the government grants, as far as I can see, what appears in the report is accurate. On the point about the cyber money, clearly we're going to have a major debate on this shortly, but I think it's important that I announce as well that the cyber money will be paid in cash in the first week in May, and unlike other councils, we are getting money from the exceptional financial support grant that the government has. Unlike all the others, we are uniquely able to get cash rather than to have borrowing, and the borrowing conditions are pretty onerous for those other councils. They involve higher interest rates than would normally be expected. So this is a unique settlement, and other councils experiencing cyber attack have not got a single penny. You mentioned that the contact that the leader of the council and members of the resources directorate and the managing director have had I would suggest that they're almost haranguing officials and government ministers in order to get the grant. The conditions under which we get this are, if you like to describe these as bog standard conditions. I notice in the press there's been some concern about the conditions being onerous for us. I would dispute that. There are always conditions where if the conditions aren't met, the money will be reclaimed by the government. Given the general and specific conditions that we've got, we are confident that these will be fulfilled. Clearly, the grant, linking up with the point you were making in the question, grant funding must be set against the eligible costs, and there's a whole list of eligible costs that the MHGCL insist upon, and they are for the current year. In fact, I announced quite a number of these issues in the budget statement earlier on in the year. These are mainly concerned with additional spending and the lost income that the council had, and the depleted reserves that were already too low that we inherited as an administration, and we're limiting our chances of replenishing them. This is a one-off government grant and will therefore improve the financial outturn for next year. The second condition is a common condition that's required by any authority receiving government grant. And the government will commission an external assurance review of the current financial situation of the council that's got to be completed by the end of July. The council has already submitted quite a considerable amount of information that refers to this. However, in the circumstances, it's been recognised that we have a unique response to this and to the COVID attack and the money that we are getting. So we are fairly confident that this particular condition can be fulfilled. The third condition is an independent assessment of the outcomes of the work done to recover from the cyber attack and to build future cyber resilience. As far as we're concerned, this condition is fine. The council has worked closely with government, as I mentioned in my report, has worked closely with government officials in the Communities Ministry, expert agencies, including the National Cyber Agency, the National Cyber Security Centre, the National Computing Centre, and the Information Commissioner's Office, as well as the cyber specialists of our auditors and bazaars. So, given those three conditions, we are confident, one, that the conditions can be fulfilled, two, that the reserves can be replenished, and thirdly, that we will go ahead with a refreshed and robust and financially resilient system.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale. Councillor Watts, do you have a question for Councillor Nightingale, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First point is in the values of our future plan includes green and clean. And I have been asking for a while why, after the first lockdown, the first thing our engineers did was cut down all the grass verges and all the wildflowers. I found an article from the Press Association, survey of over 190 councils, found 136 are already managing road verges to maximise biodiversity, with another 38 planning to do so. Could I ask whether Redcar and Cleveland are actually, given our climate change emergency, going to go down that path and stop destroying hedgerows? The second point is on the communications, which I think for the majority of last year was very limited. The communications team themselves said it was by Facebook and social media, and I kept complaining because there's an awful lot of our population, as we found with the schooling, didn't even have computers. I think this was rectified more recently, but I think we have a long way to go as a council before we're, fully representing our residents. The third one is this website problem, which seems to be generic. As a resident as well as a councillor, I mean, simple things like how you find out what day your bin is collected. I tried putting my address in, not known. I tried putting my postcode in, not known. The only way I could get in was to make a guess at my zone number. Now, this isn't helpful when we're trying to improve collections by bins. Something must be done urgently on this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Councillor Nightingale?
Well, most of that was a statement, but obviously we'll investigate the issue for ensuring we do have biodiversity, and we are dealing with the climate change emergency. One of the key things that the council did was to ensure that we had a cabinet member who was responsible for dealing with the climate change, and I think that is to be applauded. And we also now have an assistant director in place too. On the issue of communications, I think obviously during a pandemic, where there are lockdowns and restrictions on movement, communication is inevitably difficult. And I think we should be applauding the fact that the vast majority of people these days have got mobile phones, and quite a number of people have got access to laptops. The issues that you've raised, Councillor Watts and Councillor Quartermain, are precisely the reasons why we want to ensure that hopefully by the autumn we will have a new and vastly improved website for public to use, and to extend the opportunities for people to engage with the council.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, do you have questions for Councillor Nightingale, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 4 questions. Can I echo the congratulations to all those members of staff who have, throughout the pandemic and the cyber attack, shown remarkable resilience and flexibility. And I think the residents of the borough are well served by the efforts that have been made collectively and the leadership that's been shown in addressing the challenges that have been thrown up by those circumstances. 4 questions I have. We've spoken about working from home and how the pandemic has encouraged that so that we can be COVID compliant. However, there have been concerns expressed about productivity, and are we still able to deliver the level of commitment that we had previously? And there are undoubted constraints in terms of cooperative working, and there have been challenges with IT that we know about. We were guided to believe that there was going to be a piece of work undertaken to look at productivity within the authority, which looked at before, during, and where we're going. Can we be advised where that report sits at the moment? The second question relates to COVID ambassadors. We did, with government funding, employ COVID ambassadors to assist the local authority in delivering a high standard of compliance. There have been concerns expressed by residents about absence of sight of COVID ambassadors. That in some respects is understandable, because if we've only got 9, we can't be everywhere in the borough all of the time. But we were also guided to understand that there would be a full report at the conclusion of this exercise to detail the funding that had been secured and how it had been spent and what the outcomes were. So I would again seek guidance as to when we might be expecting that a final report in that detail. Another benefit we've had from central government, which we all applaud, is the amount of support that has been received by this authority and then channeled subsequently to support local businesses. Without that support, many local businesses undoubtedly would not be still with us. So we applaud the government for that support. However, again, questions have been raised about which businesses are receiving funding support. There is clearly a data protection challenge here to explain how perhaps individual business receipts of funding may not be able to be publicly disclosed. But I think it would be really helpful if the authority could give as detailed a breakdown as they possibly can, so that the public can see where the central government grant funding has been spent. And then my 4th question relates to the section on IT and digitalisation. There are so many aspects surrounding the cyber attack. One fundamental is, why were we not prepared for it? Now, in the report, we are guided to understand that since 2008, this authority has received central government recognition for its standard of resilience and capability to resist cyber attacks. So since 2008, we have been awarded what is known as a PSN certificate from central government. So what I would like to know in lay terms, and it may not be possible to do that today, and therefore a briefing note would be helpful subsequently. Why, if this authority held a certificate issued by central government that said it complied with all of the requirements necessary to withstand a cyber attack, and subsequently we were advised that we were very vulnerable, and as we all know, suffered a cyber attack and the fallout from it. So I'm not very understanding of how it is possible to say that we had government approval for a system and yet that system failed. So will there be, in the course of time, a definitive, clear report given to members to give understanding to why we got to that situation and why we were as vulnerable as we turned out to be? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Nightingale.
Thank you for that. I don't claim to be a world expert on what cyber criminals do, and I suspect that that it includes the vast majority of us here today. Clearly, one of the conditions for receiving the cyber money, as I mentioned earlier on, is that we have to ensure that we have a clean bill of health as far as our IT is concerned. And as far as my understanding is that the agencies that came to the council to help us did actually confirm that our systems were not the reason for the cyber attack. And this is a worldwide phenomenon. Many local authorities and states in the United States have been attacked, and many individual companies have been attacked. Councils across the country have been attacked as well. So clearly, the information that we have to provide to the government for the money will presumably provide some of the information that Councillor Thompson wants. On his point about the money from the government to local businesses, I can actually confirm that some of the money that has been distributed is actually money from the European Union that is actually is likely to be going out in the future. It's not all government money, it's where there has been a residue of money not actually spent. The money that we have received, whether it's from the European ERDF fund or directly from the government, has had a series of criteria that have to be fulfilled. In some cases, these are fairly restrictive, and as a result of the restrictions, we have been allowed to have discretionary awards that have been given to companies that don't initially fulfill the government's criteria. So clearly there will have to be some sort of day of reckoning on this particular issue, and I'm sure that there will be some report in the future. On the COVID ambassadors, I think it's important that we recognise that we don't want to live in a Stasi state with secret police telling people what to do. It's got to be done on a friendly basis, and that has been the main focus of the activities of the COVID ambassadors. I'm doing the questions in opposite order, as you may have noticed. On the issue of productivity, I think I was one of the first people who was concerned in the past, not just now, about the issue of productivity and ensuring that the council staff are working effectively and efficiently. And I'm pretty confident that that will be the case. In terms of measuring the productivity of people who have to work from home, this may well be rather difficult. There may be people who are actually doing even more work as a result of working from home because of less disruptions and so forth. And I do think it's essential that we have a proper mix of working from home and access personal access to teams together so that they can show that they are working collaboratively. And that's the essential feature of working for the council, I think. In terms of a report on this, I'm sure that a day of reckoning will come when we are in a position to provide Councillor Thompson with all the information that he requires and is then put at his disposal.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale. Councillor Foggo, do you have a question on Councillor Nightingale's report?
Yes, Councillor Foggo. Councillor Nightingale mentioned the money we're receiving for the cyber attack and the conditions that we have to comply with. These are independent assessments, and therefore I would suspect will cost quite a bit of money. Who's paying for these independent assessments? Is it going to be the council or is it going to be the government?
Thank you. Councillor Nightingale.
Well, as I said, some of the work has already gone into fulfilling these conditions in order to provide the government with what they call the due diligence for assessing whether we should get any money or not. I've no idea who actually pays for the work that has to be done. As I said, these are fairly standard conditions that apply to all government ring-fence grants, and already the work that has been done to fulfil the government's requirements will have taken place. I suspect that if the government is appointing people to inspect what is happening, it will be part of their bills to pay. Obviously, we'll have to see what actually happens in that case. I'm not sure whether they charge us a fee or not. We'll have to see about that.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale. Councillor Lanigan, do you have a question for Councillor Nightingale?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And if Councillor Nightingale would just give me so I could answer some of those questions, because I'm quite sure that he will agree with me. There's been a lot said about the cyber attack. I want to absolutely reassure members that we actually worked 24/7 to get this sorted out. And I worked alongside the LGA. We had a meeting with all the leaders of the UK councils and along with the civil servants. And we've put a video out there. I want to absolutely nail this. We were not under that PSN certificate. We were one of the top councils in the country to pass that. There was nothing wrong with our systems. And members have got to quite understand with this was a foreign attack that came into Redcar Cleveland. It had a ransom attached to that, which we did not pay. We worked alongside central government. We actually had their top guys up from GCHQ and Cobra and our officers and managing director and all our staff involved in this, including myself, they worked 24/7, as did our IT staff. We tried to get as much money as we could, and I want to make it absolutely clear that that was very robust. And what we say in the inspection that is coming in, and it is minor, what they want to look at, most of this work is already done, and it's been done over the last several months and before that. And so that assessment will be paid for by central government. They're coming in to have a look. And just to remind members that we have been the most fortunate council, if you can put it that way. None of the other councils got any money whatsoever with this. And it's been a tremendous effort from Redcar Cleveland and everybody involved to get that done. And I'm quite sure, Councillor Nightingale, that you would agree with that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Councillor Nightingale?
Well, absolutely. I think we should really congratulate the Leader of the Council, John Sampson. I think I've already done this, but I want to do it again. They did so well, and all the members of staff who were involved in this, in working out the cost to the council, the loss of revenue. We just really do need to reiterate, this was a one-off. This was unique. It was unprecedented. No other council got cash for a cyber attack, and no other council has had the support from the government in this particular way. And while we regret the fact that we've had this attack, it's pretty obvious we would do. We should be quite satisfied that at least we've got some compensation for the consequences that the cyber attack produced.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale. I think we may have a question from Councillor Pallister.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I've just been listening to the report from Councillor Nightingale and the comments from Councillor, the Leader, Councillor Lanigan, and you know the word satisfied, and we should be satisfied, and it's a fair deal, and how good we've done getting 3.6 million out of, I think it was a 10 million loss to the council. I think we have actually forgot how much this Tory government's took from our council budget. It's 102 million. They've given the Friends £1 billion contracts. Our two MPs, Redcar Cleveland, Jacob Young and Simon Clark, have refused to vote against an inquiry for the Grenfell scandal. And yet we're sat talking here as if they've done us a favour with 3.6 million. I think we need to remember what they actually have done to this council and in Redcar and
Councillor Pallister, can I just stop you a moment? Do you have a question on Councillor Nightingale's report?
Yes, I do.
Because we do have a motion later on where you can say these things.
Well, it's not on the cyber attack, the motion. No, I'd like to ask Councillor Nightingale if he really does truly think that this Tory government has been fair to Redcar and Cleveland.
Well, I'm not here to defend the Johnson government. And I do not think that the Conservative governments have been fair to the local council whatsoever. I do not support Mr. Johnson. I do not support the Conservative government, and I think my past record would actually show that even when we had the coalition, I was calling for the end of austerity before the 2015 election. No, I'm not here to defend the Conservative government. I think I'll leave that to the Conservatives on the council, and I'll leave that to anybody who wishes to justify what the Conservative government under Boris Johnson has been doing. And I think not only is it important that we should have an inquiry on a whole range of things, we should certainly have an inquiry on the last 12 months of the pandemic.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale, and thank you for your report. Okay, so we can now move on to item 8. 8A are decisions taken under urgency provisions. So the normal rules of debate apply. The mover of the report may speak for 10 minutes. The seconder may speak for 5 minutes. And the mover may speak for 5 minutes and summing up the debate. So are you introducing this, Councillor Lanigan?
I am, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members, I'm asking for recommendation from council for this, that in light of the expiry of legislation permitting the use of remote technology for meetings, the current diary of council meetings previously agreed in September last year be amended. The annual general meeting...
Sorry, Councillor Lanigan, could I just stop you there? I think you've moved ahead of yourself.
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
This is decisions taken under urgency provisions. That other one is later. I think that's part C. So part A.
Madam Mayor, I do apologise. I think I've got that many pieces of paper on the desk. I will have a look and see. I don't actually. I should have that, Madam Mayor, but I don't appear to have it. I've got B, I've got C, and I can't see that I've got A. So I do apologise, Madam Mayor, but I will have a look. It doesn't appear to be here with my papers. So if you could excuse me, right.
It's actually page 29 of the pack, if you're able to turn to that.
Right. Let me see.
It is an information only report, apparently.
I do apologise, Madam Mayor. I apologise, members. I'm ready, Madam Mayor, with this.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Council members are requested to note the following decisions that have been taken recently under emergency provisions as set out in the Council's access to information procedure rules that require reporting to Council, and it was an award of contract to Regen Group Limited. The background, Madam Mayor, to this: the local authority under executive arrangements, meeting and access to information, regulations 2012, and the Council's constitution sets out procedures to be followed in respect of executive decisions made, including delegated decisions. If a key decision is so urgent that it's not possible to comply with the general exceptions, urgency rules by virtue of the date, then it must be taken as special urgency provisions. The agreement of the chair of the relevant scrutiny and improvement committee that the decision cannot reasonably be deferred must be obtained, and that was done, Madam Mayor. A notice setting out this provision and detailing the reason for the urgency had to be published, which we have done. Where it is the application of the calling procedure that will give rise to issues, but there was no separate issues with that whatsoever, and that all those tests were met. So can I just ask that this goes forward, Madam Mayor, and that recommendation of award of contract to Regen Group Limited. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Glyn Nightingale. Okay. Yes, this is a report for information only, but we can still have speakers on it. Yeah. Thank you, just to clarify that. Councillor Sue Jeffrey, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I wonder if the leader could tell me, please, what was the contract for and how much it was worth?
Councillor Jeffrey, I haven't actually got that in front of me, but I will let you know and I will email you directly. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, if I could just, Madam Mayor, if I could just come back. So we're being asked to approve an urgent action when we don't have the details of what that urgent action is. I do find that rather concerning, Madam Mayor.
Well, I'm sorry, Councillor Jeffrey, that you find that concerning. I haven't got the figures in front of me.
Thank you. We are not being asked to approve this. This is a report for information only. Councillor Ovens, did you wish to speak? Okay, there was a yes from you in the chat. Okay,
Sorry,
are there any
where
others?
that came from?
Are there any others wishing to speak? Councillor Foggo, did you wish to speak?
Yes, I can say what the contract's for. Basically, the people who deal with our recycling waste when it's collected by our services went bust in February, and we had to find a new contractor in a very short period of time, in about 48 hours. So this contract was to deal with all our recycling waste and take it to a recycling plant and get it sorted.
Madam Mayor, can I thank Councillor Foggo for that?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Councillor Foggo, for that. It isn't on my briefing papers that I've got, but actually underneath you are absolutely quite correct. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Councillor Glyn Nightingale?
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't think we need to make a controversy out of this, and I think it's very important that what Councillor Foggo said is recognised by members of the council. This was a major achievement in ensuring that our recycling didn't pile up and was actually done. And I think it's important that we commend the activities of the staff for being so quick off the mark and being able to ensure that our recycling did continue.
Madam Mayor, if I
thank you.
could just come back on that, I haven't got a cost for Councillor Jeffrey, but we do have the special urgency, and it did go through the cabinet member for that, and I understand the contract for a 12-month period from the 1st of April to the 31st of March was agreed by Regen Group. These companies were considered in the decision, but there's no cost on this, Councillor Jeffrey, but I will make sure that you get it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Okay. Well, I can return to you, Councillor Lanigan, to wind up the debate, if you wish.
It was for information only, Madam Mayor, and I hope that members will actually see what that was for, and I thank Councillor Foggo and Councillor Nightingale for coming in with that. That was very, very helpful.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Okay, thank you. Item B, 8B, is a review of proportionality and distribution of seats. I believe there have been some late developments in terms of the proportionality arrangements, which means the calculations and allocations in the report are now inaccurate. So I'm going to ask the monitoring officer to explain the position and the recommendations for dealing with this issue. So if I can hand over, I think, Steve Newton.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Although a review of proportionality had been triggered by some previous changes within the political groups, and the team had prepared the report in the agenda pack accordingly, since then, unfortunately, there have been some further moves, and some of those were only confirmed via the official paperwork late yesterday. So, as I'm sure members will appreciate, this means we haven't had time to recalculate the seat allocations, assess how they should be best distributed across the committees, and then consult with the groups and individual members in order to be in a position today to put forward a revised proportionality proposal that's accurate in time for this meeting. So given that position, it doesn't seem in practical terms we're in a position today to confirm the proportionality properly. And I've been led to believe it may be that there's one or two further changes that might take effect in any event. So that being the case, although not ideal, I think the best course is probably to defer this item to the next meeting, which, subject to the next agenda item, might only be a couple of weeks for the AGM. And in the meantime, the status quo will prevail. but that period will allow the team, obviously, the time to consult with the groups and get things bottomed off before that next meeting takes place. So if that suggestion can be supported, Madam Mayor, then perhaps if somebody could move that and second that, and we could agree to adjourn the item to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So could we have somebody to move that we adjourn this item to the next meeting, please?
I'm happy to move that, Madam Mayor.
And I
Councillor
second that,
Gallagher.
Madam Mayor.
Right,
Thank
I
you.
think that was Councillor Gallagher to move and Councillor Lanigan to second that. Are we all in agreement with this? Does anybody disagree? Okay, thank you. In that case, then it is moved that we adjourn this item to the next meeting. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda, 8C, is the proposed changes to the council meeting diary. Councillor Lanigan, are you moving this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I apologise for the previous mix-up. The recommendation that I'm actually asking Council to approve, that in light of the expiry of legislation permitting the use of remote technology for meetings, the current diary of the Council meetings, previously agreed in September last year, be amended, that the annual general meeting be brought forward to the 27th of May to 2 p.m. on the 28th of May, on the 28th of April. The council meeting on the 20th of May 2021 will be removed from the diary and any business for that meeting be rolled over to the civic year of 21-22. Meetings of decision-making committees should be held in person where necessary, and meetings of scrutiny and improvement committees shall continue to be held remotely until and after the 21st of June 2021, given the nature of the remit. The background members to this, members will be aware that the council has been operating under arrangements for remote meeting as allowed by temporary legislation. And that doesn't just apply to us, that's to the local authorities and the police and fire authorities. Despite the success of these arrangements and national lobbying by councils and other organisations, including the LGA, the government has elected not to extend these provisions beyond the 6th of May 2021. As from that date, there is some considerable doubt as to whether existing legislation covering council meetings would allow these meetings to lawfully take place under remote technology. A case has been lodged seeking a declaration from the courts confirming the position. However, the outcome of this litigation is not known and may not be known until the end of April, which would clearly leave the little time to consider any contingency arrangements. In the absence of any firm position with regard to the legal position, the most appropriate option would be to assume that formal meetings of the Borough Council, due to occur after expiry of that legislation, must take place in person for any decisions to be made and make sure that those decisions are lawful. Holding an in-person meeting of the Borough Council presents us with some significant practical issues. The council chamber is of insufficient size to accommodate social distancing requirements for the 56 current members, plus the various officers who attend such meetings. Physical screening has been considered, but this would still leave members in very close proximity other than when seated and would be difficult and potentially costly to install. Therefore, the health and safety team advise that this is not an appropriate option. It would be possible to decant the meeting into a larger venue, for example, a sports hall. However, it would not then be possible to use the current IT and sound systems that we have within the chamber. Although a portable PA system could be used along with roving wireless microphones, this results in considerations around safety, the risk of infection, given that the microphone would potentially be in contact with multiple users. both in terms of their hands and air fluids exhaled while members speak. Again, therefore, the health and safety team advised that this is present, it's a risk. Aside from any safety implications, holding an in-person meeting at which circa 70 individuals will be present does seem contradictory in terms of the general situation with regard to internal gatherings, even as at the 17th of May 2021, when restrictions are due to be lifted further. As part of any in-person council meetings, there would be need to admit members of the public, which, although potentially of a limited impact, brings other considerations in the terms of ensuring social distancing. Given the position above outlined, consideration being given to propose that might mitigate to any members, officers and the public as a result of the need to hold in-person council meetings with effect from the 7th of May. In the absence of any ready available practical measures which might allow such a meeting to proceed safely within the existing council chamber, the best solution would seem to be to use the existing legislation that we have to bring forward the AGM to a date when remote meetings can still, of course, lawfully take place, and to defer any other scheduled meetings to a date after the 21st of June, when social restrictions are due to be lifted under the step 4 of the government roadmap for coming out of lockdown. Assuming all progress well, then this would allow time to ensure COVID infection rates have reduced further and maximise the number of members, officers and members who have received their vaccinations. Aside from the AGM, which is currently due to be on the 27th of May 2021, there is only one other council meeting, which was on the 20th of May 2021, scheduled to take prior to the 21st of June. There is currently no critical business currently anticipated for that meeting, and the first meeting of the new civic year, subject to the approval, of course, at the AGM, is provisionally scheduled for the 1st of July, leaving a gap of only a few weeks. Given the above position, members, it's proposed that the AGM be brought forward to the 28th of April 2021, so that it may take place remotely, and that any business due to be considered at that meeting on the 20th of May be rolled over into the next civic year. In the letter from government confirming its intentions, which stated that councils could also consider conducting their annual meeting prior to the 7th of May and therefore do remotely, with the express provision in current regulations that actually apply at the moment. There are 3 by-elections which will clearly not have taken place at that date. This does not prevent the date of the AGM being brought forward, but means that there will be a need to review the political proportionality ahead of the first meeting in the new civic year. The regulations regarding remote meetings also apply to the Cabinet and other committees. Therefore, until we have confirmation as to whether such meetings are lawful under existing legislation, it is appropriate to assume that decisions taken by committees, Cabinet, after the 6th of May 2021, other than via in-person, may be void and legally challengeable. As membership of the Cabinet committees is considerably smaller than that of the full council, most of these meetings can be physically accommodated within the council chamber, with social distancing and other measures in place. Therefore, it is proposed that any meeting of the Cabinet and decision-making committees, which cannot be deferred until after the 21st of June, should take place subject to appropriate risk assessments. Although significantly smaller than meetings of the full council, Scrutiny Improvement Committee tend to involve larger attendance than other meetings and may present more practical issues and a higher level of risk if those meetings take place in person. However, given that Scrutiny and Improvement Committee in basic terms make recommendations to other decision makers or scrutinise their decisions, rather than taking decisions which directly implement any specific policy or action or legal challenges to their normal works, it is unlikely and would be of very limited, if any, practical effect, even if successful. Therefore, it is considered reasonable for the meetings of Scrutiny and Improvement Committee to continue remotely during this period of uncertainty, and other councils appear to be taking this same approach. This would help to minimise the number of in-person meetings that need to take place and hence reduce the risk to those who might attend. Leaders of political groups have been consulted, informed of these proposed arrangements, and general concerns and comments that have been raised have actually been taken into account. There is a list, Madam Mayor, on the back of those about the risks and resources, but I ask members to approve this going forward. We have challenged, along with the LGA, we are one of the councils that actually have wrote to government to ask that they change their mind with this going forward. What we're getting back from central government at the moment is they didn't have time to get in there to change the legislation. We cannot put our officers and members at risk, and it is impractical to do that. So I'm asking that the AGM be brought forward, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Do we have a seconder, please?
I'll second that and reserve the right to speak, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Glyn Nightingale. Councillor Quatermain, Councillor Carl Quatermain, you'd like to speak on this?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and we agree to this proposal. My hope really is that common sense will prevail at the end of April with the court case to extend virtual meetings, and that face-to-face meetings can also include virtual links. And I have to say, I find it ridiculous, the pressure with costs the government has imposed on our council and councils up and down the country by not permitting virtual meetings like this one to continue after May the 6th. This has been forced on us to bring forward our AGM by a month so that we can function safely and legally, and for no good reason. It's complete madness, really. I mean, even before the pandemic, there's been calls, for video links where there's mitigating circumstances, and good examples of this are maternity and paternity leave. There's also the issues around mobility, and we had at least 2 councillors in the last term who would have benefited from being able to hook up virtually during live meetings like this one. And regardless of the circumstances, though, we've moved on. We're all au fait with the technology and progressed our digital education through necessity. We're all the better for it, and the government should be encouraging it. Reducing car journeys and carbon emissions, as well as not printing off reams of paper documents, is something the government should be progressing towards, not stopping. They should, in fact, decentralise control so ours and all councils can decide on their own local governance on matters such as this. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Quatermain. Councillor Watts, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with the changes proposed. It's common sense, but there is one thing that worries me. John Sampson commented at the last report that he would leave the proportional representation on committees until our AGM, which, as it says in here, is just a few days before the by-elections. It seems a waste of resources to draw up a list of committees which will be altered a week later. Can't that be left until the first meeting after that?
Thank you, Councillor Watts. I'd like to bring in Councillor Bill Clark, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. Thanks very much. There was a lot of information to take on board there, and a lot of change of dates, etc. So I'd be grateful if Democratic Services could ramp up some kind of brief for all members, particularly about the change of dates, etc. And I know this will be covered as well, but could we also be assured that, because a lot of us are town and council, parish councillors as well, that they'll be guided through this process as well, which would be of great assistance to us all and to the town and parish councils, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Sue Jeffrey, please.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I obviously agree with everything that Councillor Quatermain just said about this, but you know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's completely not satisfactory. It's not satisfactory for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's going to be held before the local elections, including 3 by-elections in this borough. So basically we're disenfranchising those 3 candidates, so they're not going to be able to be involved in the AGM. And the whole purpose of AGMs was to have them after elections. And I know we've only got by-elections, but after elections is really important because it's the resetting each year of the political setup of an area. So, you know, it's just nonsense. And for the government to say that they haven't got parliamentary time to ensure that local government operates policy properly, you know, what's all that about? It just shows yet again, and we've talked about the cyber attack and we'll talk about it more, the disrespect that this government has for local government and the work that we do, and the fact that we need to be able to function properly. And they can't find time to put the legislation through Parliament. Dear me, it's just unacceptable. And I come back to this whole thing that somebody else made the point. I think it was Councillor Pallister, about the complacency with which we sometimes just accept what government tell us to do. And I hear about this court case, but I think we should be objecting in the strongest possible terms to the fact that that we have not got parliamentary time to deal with this, and that local councils are not able to arrange their meetings in the best way to keep their officers and members safe and to give their residents best access to those meetings. And I don't know if you're allowed to move things on reports, Madam Mayor, but certainly I think we should be writing to government on this one as a matter of urgency. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I want to agree with everything that's been said, and I think pandemic or no pandemic, the access to the public to these meetings is greater, especially people who are at home with children who want to access them but wouldn't want to bring the children down to sit in a council chamber for several hours. I think most of us here will remember the Beast from the East, which nearly put us out of timescale on an essential budget. Had we had the option at the time to hold a meeting remotely, that would never have happened, and it was quite. Speaking to the local MP, he said it was very unlikely that any new legislation would be passed by the government, and as I say, I don't understand why. And we have councillors and we have members of the public who suddenly a child will be off school ill for the day. They might not be able to attend a meeting, but they might be able to attend it if they could access it remotely. So it's just flexibility that we should be allowed to allow the greater number of people to be there as possible, carrying out what we've been elected to do in the best possible way that we can do it at the time. So yes, strongly approve everything that's been said so far.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Corley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just echoing what others have said, really. As Councillor King just said there about people whose children are off sick, can't make meetings, could join remotely. Now, my children are at a dance school, and when other children have to isolate due to the pandemic and the way that we've had to do things, she's managed to hook up with Zoom, as well as having live lessons in the dance studio before lockdown 3. she could still hold them Zoom lessons to teach that child. So if that child could still join in who was at home, why on earth is us as a local authority, and that's a small dance school, why we can't on a bigger scale do it? I have no idea. We have the technology, so that's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Corley. Councillor Glyn Nightingale, I left you till the end, as you reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. I just think it's inexplicable what the government is actually doing, and I think the rationalisations that they put forward for not even trying to have some sort of regulations put through Parliament, which can be done very fast, is well, I'm short of words for it. It's inexplicable, certainly, and I think Councillor Jeffrey hit the nail on the head. They are also putting us all at risk of a further outbreak of COVID. I did initially have reservations about this, but for all the practical and pragmatic reasons that Councillor Lanigan mentioned, I think this is probably what we've got to do. There is the court case on the 21st of April. What chance that has of getting through, I think we should only leave that to the bookmakers. And so I think regrettably we have to go ahead. There are problems, of course, and that is the points that have been raised by other members about committee placings. But until Mr. Newton put the piece on the chat, I was under the impression that it was a legal requirement anyway, and something we have to do. It does make it rather difficult, especially with the fluidity of the membership of groups of this council. But there are often regular updates that are put forward. Overwhelmingly, I think we've learnt that there are far more efficient ways of operating both the council, the work that the council staff do, and the work that councillors do. And I think in future, if we are able to do this, pre-meetings and other, even group meetings maybe, would be far more satisfactory done under Teams. But we'll have to investigate that. But for the reasons of efficiency and cost, and to operate on a pragmatic basis, I think we have to go ahead with this, although I think it is regrettable. And it's something that the government could have helped us with.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale. I think we have no more speakers, so I will go back to Councillor Lanigan to sum up, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I absolutely agree with everyone who's spoken there, and it is absolutely appalling. And I have been in touch with both of our MPs. I've also written to central government about this. We've had meetings with the LGA, and I don't think there is one council within the UK that haven't been up against this and said this isn't acceptable. And I couldn't understand why central government couldn't find a time for local governments, and I absolutely agree with what members have said about that. It's absolutely disgraceful. And we have, in the strongest of terms, put our letter into them with no effect. And I think it's appalling that the LGA have got to take court action against this. But bearing in mind with that, members, that we've got to make sure that you're safe and our staff are safe. And given the pandemic is still ongoing, and I know that the numbers are down, and this just opens things out for this virus to spread. I know a lot of us had our vaccinations, but others have not. And I think that that was appalling of central government not to recognise that going forward. And we're going to have to wait to see the outcome of this. But I understand this is under legal implications for us. And it isn't good that we've got by-elections coming up, but it's our staff, and we will do everything we can to get that through. So members, I'd just like you to accept this. And Councillor Clark, yes, of course, will send out the paperwork for this. And I thought everyone had this report prior with all the dates on. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. So are we all in agreement to approve the changes to the council meeting diary? Does anybody disagree? Okay, thank you. In that case, that is approved. And now moving on then to item 9 on the agenda is to consider motions. Motion 1 today is moved by Councillor Watts and seconded by Councillor Lockwood. The proposer can speak for up to 10 minutes. All other speeches are for 5 minutes. Councillor Watts, would you like to introduce the motion?
Thank you. Around 8 o'clock on Saturday the 20th of February this year, a large Chinese lantern over 2 feet in height blew into Gizbert and struck a barn in a secluded spot in my ward and set fire to the hay and straw. It was fortunate that several people were still attending to the 10 horses in the nearby stables, and they were able to put out the subsequent fire in the hay and straw stored in the barn. No horses were injured and there was limited damage to the straw and hay in the barn. I dread to think what would have happened if nobody had been around at the time. I acknowledge that Chinese lanterns and balloons are often released in memory of a loved one, but it can be very dangerous to put a naked flame inside flimsy paper and send it off into the unknown, particularly in rural areas. These lanterns are not only a serious fire risk, but pose a choking threat to wildlife and livestock and can also cause false call-outs to the Coast Guard. Similarly, helium balloons can cause significant harm by entanglement and choking and take considerably longer to degrade than paper lanterns. Many councils, including neighbouring North Yorkshire, have banned the sale and release of such lanterns and balloons from council land and premises. In fact, this council passed a resolution in June 2014 banning the use and sale of sky lanterns from its own land and premises. So given this latest incident, it seems that wider measures should be considered, alongside an appropriate publicity campaign to raise awareness of the damage that these items can cause. I would add that given there was a similar resolution in 2014, I think what I'm looking for, and I would like considered, is the banning of these lanterns from anywhere in Redcar and Cleveland, not just council property, because I think an awful lot are released from private gardens. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Watts. Councillor Lockwood, are you seconding this proposal and do you wish to speak?
I am. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I haven't really got a lot to add to that, but I think there's lots of precedent already. There's over 160 councils banned the use of these within their boroughs, and they're also completely banned within Wales, banned by the Welsh Assembly. Also, there's campaigns being run by the RSPCA, the British Horse Society, the National Farmers Union and the Fire Chiefs Council, as well as the Marine Conservation Society. So there's lots of precedents, and there's also many occasions that are listed where these have actually started fires. The worst one being a case in Smethick in the West Midlands, where there was over 200 firefighters spent 4 days putting out a fire started by one of these lanterns, with 3 firefighters ending up in hospital because of it. So yes, I'd like to second this. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lockwood. We have a few speakers. Can I bring in Councillor Ovens, please?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mike, for referring to that considerable fire in the Midlands. The Chief Fire Officer Association have long campaigned against these, and certainly Ian Hayton, the Chief Fire Officer, and Paul Curtin, the Chair from Cleveland FA, would support local politicians calling for an urgent review of the floating paper lanterns as they operate in an unregulated and unacceptable way. We have been very fortunate in that we've not had these incidents, but had the incident that Councillor Watts reported, not had people there at source, we could have had a major conflagration. The one in the West Midlands took in more than 200 firefighters, 32 appliances and 3 hydraulic platforms, leaving the rest of the area to be covered by other brigades and at possible risk. I think we have an opportunity to review our stance on this, and I would welcome that. In addition, I think Mike's referred to some of it as well, Councillor Lockwood. In addition, they present a hazard to livestock, agriculture, camping activities, hazardous materials, properties. We've been very fortunate that we've not had incidents, but you never know when it could happen. And as I said, I would just welcome a review of further measures that could be taken. And I think, you know, we ought to be looking at some sort of national regulation, which would be good. So I support the motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ovens. Now bring in Councillor King, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I support the motion. I've seen a significant increase in the recent years working in the wedding industry of these, but these being put off. But it used to be in hotel car parks. There's a lot more rural weddings now, marquees and teepees. People in the middle of nowhere setting these off. Not only can they land on animals and scare them, they can be eaten by animals, as I say, set fire to hay, straw, and you could be talking in quite remote locations. If they're already remote when they're set off and then they travel 2 or 3 miles, it could be a long time before anyone even notices that fire and the health implications to the animals and the livestock. So I fully support this motion and the review of that, and also helium balloons and the impact they have on the environment and especially animals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Quatermain. Councillor Carl Quatermain, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and yes, I agree with the comments and sentiments of our other members and speakers. I'm completely in favour. Anything that can be lit up by a naked flame and allowed to float off or be projected should be banned, in my opinion. It's dangerous to the animals, dangerous to the wildlife, and is harmful to the environment in general. So, you know, to me, it's a no-brainer. These are old-fashioned things that we should be doing away with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Quatermain. Councillor Lanigan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully support this, Councillor Watts, and for you bringing this to our attention. Since that actually happened, I've been inundated with emails from people. We did have that legislation, as you said, in 2014, but I don't think it's got enough teeth, and we need to have a look at this and take this forward as a matter of urgency. And I fully support what you've done, and we will move along that with the officers as quickly as we can and get some enforcement in place. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Don't appear to have any more speakers on this. Councillor Watts, would you like to come back in?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank councillors for this. Seems to be almost unanimous support. I did feel this was a very serious issue. I wasn't aware of the previous resolution, but as I said earlier, I don't think that was strong enough given the fact now that we're seeing more and more of these things, and we have predominantly a rural hinterland in our county, and I think we should be taking an in-depth view of this and hopefully putting a complete stop to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. So let's come to the decision. Do we all approve and support this motion? Probably easier if I say, is there anybody who does not, who's against the motion? That seems to be well supported. I'm sure it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Motion approved. Motion 2 is to be moved by Councillor Sue Jeffrey and seconded by Councillor Lynn Pallister. Councillor Sue Jeffrey, would you like to introduce this motion?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I hope that in relation to this motion, that we can actually sort of put away some perhaps of our preconceived ideas and think about just exactly what it is we're doing here today and how important this facility is for the people of the Greater Eston area. So the motion's in two parts, and the first asks that you agree basically to do the repairs necessary to get Eston Baths open again without further delay. And the second asks that you support our proposal to provide new baths. And, you know, I'm going to take it as read that you all support the second part of the motion to provide new baths. I would, in saying that, just note that it seems that funding for such a major project is no object. And I'm assuming that the Cabinet report in June will set out the full proposals and include the full details of how consultation will be undertaken with our community about a new leisure centre and what it is we want and the timetable. And I would just remind people that the shortest lead-in time, as I understand it, is 2 years and the longest is up to 10 and beyond. But even with those caveats, as I say, I assume that the proposal for new baths is supported by all. But the key bit of this motion is, and really what is at stake here today, is what happens in the meantime. What are we going to do in the meantime? And whether we will repair and reopen Eston Baths. Now, at the beginning of this week, and some of you have been watching Look North last night as well, baths across the country and the borough opened following the COVID lockdown. But not our baths, not the baths in Eston, and not for the 38,000 people that live in South Bank, Grangetown, Teesville, Normanby, Eston and Ormsby. For them, there's been no opportunity to return to local swimming because their baths are closed. And I have to say that if this administration have their way, they're going to stay closed for the next years. But the fact is, it doesn't have to be like this. Yesterday, I circulated a Cabinet report that was meant to go to Cabinet in March. In it, officers made clear that any closure, permanent or for several years, while new is being built, will have, and I quote, a detrimental effect on the already poor health of the area and would mean the area would be without baths for too long, So the only viable option to protect a key service and to support the public health of 36,000 citizens is to repair and reopen whilst working to provide future swimming provision for the site in the future. Now, as I've said, the officer report clearly set out how this could be done. But very, very sadly, the Cabinet, in its wisdom, disagreed. And I do have to wonder which one of you was it that first piped up after the report was presented by officers and said, that's far too much money, what a waste. The 38,000 people of Greater Eston can do without swimming for a few years, it won't hurt them. Which one of it was you who piped up and said that? And I wonder very much how many of you would have said the same thing had the meeting been in public or had the baths been in your own area. Well, the fact is we will never know because the discussion was held behind closed doors with no public accountability, and I'm sure you're not going to own up here today. The only evidence we have of that secret discussion is the statement issued by the council at the time, which in a cold and calculating way told us exactly what the leader and cabinet members were thinking, that the extensive costs would be a further unwelcome burden on the taxpayers of our borough. Nothing about health or well-being, just a burden on our taxpayers. So perhaps someone in this debate, someone from the cabinet or the leader, will tell me just what the price this administration is prepared to pay for the good health of the residents of the 6 Greater Eston wards. Could you tell me that, please? And I would remind you that our area of the borough is the hardest hit by COVID. It's been recognised by multiple studies and research to have high unemployment, shocking poverty and the poorest health. So this was the wrong decision taken by Cabinet, and it was against officer advice. But there is a chance to change that. There's a chance here for us all to stand together and put it right and get Eston Baths repaired and reopened as soon as possible. No more messing around, just get on with it. And yes, I, like you, have seen the latest report, although I have to say I had to fight to get it published, but it tells us nothing new. We know we need replacement baths in the long term, but in the short term we need to repair and reopen. And I want to tell you a couple of facts about the people who use the baths. First of all, a little bit about Eston Amateur Swimming Club, who are based at the baths and have been there virtually since they opened. Do you know what they do for our area? 130 swimmers aged from 4 to in their 40s, swimming 3 times a week. They have members and teams that compete regionally, nationally and in Europe. They're an inclusive club involving those with disabilities. They hold an annual gala attracting over 100 people, and their league all hold their galas there as well. That's 12 more galas in a year, bringing people to Eston from all over the area. They've invested thousands of pounds into equipment and volunteers. And as they say in their own words, they are a club for bonding, a family-based club, and generations of the same family have and are still involved. They are very much part of the community. Do you know what's happened to Eston Amateur Swimming Club? Already their membership is down from 130 to 80 and is continuing to fall as people can't make it to Redcar without transport. And just one other story, there's a mum who volunteers in our eco shop. She's got 2 children who love swimming, and she tried to get them to Berwick Hills, but the Neptune Centre only had the small pool open for the kids, and the rest of the baths was put over to lane swimming, so that was no good. So she didn't want them to put them on the bus to Redcar because they don't know the town, it's too far away. So they missed out on their swimming, as are all our schools missing out on their swimming. So there are loads of examples of children and residents losing out. And I want to ask you all here today, do you really want to say to your residents that you voted to stop swimming at Eston? Now, the solution is easy. We do what is right. We pass this motion. We get the report to repair and reopen the baths back to Cabinet, and we get it approved. And basically together, we stand together and we get our community swimming again. I don't think that's asking too much. I don't think any of your constituents would expect any less than that, and I don't expect it for mine. So I'm very hopeful that you will support me today. And I do have to say, Madam Mayor, that in asking for your support, I'm also asking for a recorded vote on this motion so that we can ensure that there is a record of how people or what people think about getting the baths back open for the health of the people of Greater Eston. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Do we have a seconder for this motion, please?
I second, Madam Mayor, and would like to speak on the motion.
Go ahead then, please, Councillor Pallister.
Yeah, apologies for repeating some of Councillor Jeffrey's opening remarks, but I too was watching the news over the last few days and seeing local swimming baths opened across the country. People of all ages enjoying life after lockdown, all saying how important swimming is to their mental and physical health. In Grangetown, the ward I live and represent, we have 58% of children living in poverty. Now, that was going down in 2008, but it suddenly went up in 2010 with austerity. But I won't go into that. I think we all know, we've known how many millions that we've had took from the budgets. We've got high rates of mental health and obesity. People's life expectancy is 10 years less than more affluent areas. And people live 18 years more with long-term health conditions. And within other Greater Western wards, there's also a higher than average poor health outcomes. Now, I know councillors across Grangetown, Southbank, Eston, Teesville and Normanby will know many children, young people and their families who regularly walked over to Eston swimming baths, making it a cheap leisure activity, no transport costs, and the walking contributed also to a healthier lifestyle. Yet despite this clear need, nearly 1 year after the flooding took place, 9 months since Councillor Jeffrey and I asked the Cabinet member at scrutiny what plans were in place to reopen Eston baths, we're still without a swimming pool. How does the Leader, Cabinet and ruling group of councillors think the people of Grangetown, Southbank, Eston, Teesville and Normanby feel when they see millions going into Redcar and East Cleveland, and on some projects £1 million to knock down a church in Loftus, when thousands of children and adults, many of whom live on low incomes, are denied swimming facilities for what now looks like in total up to 3 years minimum? When Councillor Sue Jeffreys set up the petition, it was out of frustration that this council's leadership was not listening to Labour councillors on the importance of reopening Eston swimming baths. Both Councillor Sue Jeffreys, Councillor Geraldine Williams and I have never raised this for public recognition. Never raised that for public recognition. It was because of out of frustration that petition was called for. And indeed, no residents would have ever known or even known we tried to get the baths open if the request at scrutiny had been listened and acted upon at the Cabinet in March. However, once 1,500 signatures within 24 hours and I think a further 1,000 plus went onto Facebook, this council did realise just how important Eston Baths is to the people of Grangetown, Southbank, Teesville, Eston and Normanby. I know Jacob Youngs jumped on the bandwagon and tried to make out very, very untruthful, I have to say, and this is why politicians are not trusted, and said that Labour had finally woke up when we were the councillors that were actually shouting to get it open 9 months ago. But anyway, if he wants to help, and I'm sure he does now, because there's a lot of votes there, isn't there? Now we've seen the petition. But nevertheless, you know, we want everyone to come together and try and get the Eston baths open. Madam Mayor, given the complete shambles, really, and disregard for the residents of Grangetown, Southbank, Teesville, Eston and Normanby, and the length of time they will be now without a swimming pool, regardless of the decision today, I'm asking this council to provide free transport, evening as well as weekends and during all school holidays, and to also meet with the local Eston Swimming Club and schools to discuss what support we can now offer them in the interim until we finally have our swimming pool back open again. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pallister. Councillor Kay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment to the motion, but I can't resist reminding Lynn that she too is a politician. Can she be trusted? The amendment is as follows. This council believes that swimming baths are not a luxury, but a necessity for the health, fitness and well-being of all our communities. As a recent report shows that repairing Eston baths is neither structurally nor financially viable, this council agrees to immediately start work to provide a new Eston swimming baths that is fit for the future meets the needs of local communities and provides high quality swimming and leisure services close to where people live. You know, I think the Labour Party on this council should get into the real world. You can't have your cake and eat it. This motion, which Councillor Jeffrey has put forward, would bind the council to spending 3 million on repairs to make the existing baths fit for use, and probably in the region of 5 million on new baths, a total of around 8 million. I don't know who made those remarks about finances she referred to, but we have a fiduciary duty, a contract with our residents and council taxpayers to spend our money prudently and wisely. Now, just imagine for a minute that Councillor Jeffrey is successful with her motion. It would mean, one, we would simultaneously start £3 million worth of works on the old baths and simultaneously, remember, at the same time, start 5 million worth of works on the new baths. And neither would be open in the first year. Secondly, once the new baths were ready, according to Councillor Jeffrey, we should immediately close and presumably demolish the old baths, which we'd already spent £3 million on. £3 million down the drain. It's an absolute, I think she's got carried away because her ward is on the borders, on the doorstep of this particular swimming bath. But really, if you think through what she's suggesting logically, it makes no sense at all. It means we're going to commit ourselves to spending around about £8 million, and after 3 years, £3 million will be written off. It's absolutely ludicrous. Now, there is a report. There's been a lot of controversy about Billinghurst's report. Councillors have seen it. I understand that a lot of members of the public have been persuaded to listen to this meeting, and therefore I'm going to quote from it. The report says that the baths are in a very poor state of repair and in need of significant remedial works. This is the £3 million we're talking about. Based on our experience, these are the surveyors and engineers reporting. Based on our experience, we are of the opinion that substantial works would be deemed necessary to refurbish the pool building. This would involve extensive works to the structural frames, beams and columns, and substantial works to the ground floor structure and pool structures. This will also necessitate the incorporation of cathodic protection to provide some means of protection to the embedded steel reinforcement. Repairs to the concrete elements of the building would be potentially expensive and from experience would have a limited design life, possibly no longer than 10 years. This is after you've spent £3 million on it. Taking account of the above and the necessary building fabric repairs, we are of the opinion, this is the experts, we are of the opinion that the most feasible option may be to demolish the building in its entirety and construct a new pool building which will have much longer design life, and life cycle costs will no doubt be lower. Just look at the pictures which are included in the report. The pictures speak for themselves. Look at the cracks, look at the dilapidation. A member said yesterday, you could bodge the baths up, but I wouldn't take my children there. It's in such a disgusting state. If you sincerely wish to uphold the health, fitness and well-being of the community, you'll vote for this amendment. Just let's get on with it.
Sorry, Councillor Kay, have you finished? Thank you. Do we have a seconder for the amendment, please?
Yes, I'll
second that and reserve the right to speak, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. That's Councillor Glyn Nightingale. Okay, so we are now going to debate the amendment, which has now appeared in your chat to remind you of what it says. Right, and I'm going to take you in the order in which you appeared on the meeting chat right at the start. So can I bring in Councillor Carl Quatermain, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And on the amendment, I can recall Councillor Kay declaring at one time, thank heavens he was overseeing the Eston Baths project, but I don't think residents would agree, considering what's happened subsequently. And I can safely say under a Labour council, the funding would have been made available for this facility and it would still be functioning. And I cannot believe that the report recommending the repair on Eston Baths was pulled by the administration. And I would like to have more detail regarding the decision making around that and who recommended this report for removal when it was approved by the officers. And I request this publicly under the Freedom of Information Act 2000. I want to know what went on behind closed doors. I would like an explanation, as would residents, as to why they have been denied the recommendation for the repair to this facility in their area, which supports their physical and mental health and well-being. Why is this duty of care expected of the administration not been afforded to them? We have heard that this is a deprived borough with some of the poorest public health figures, the worst of child poverty figures in the country, low pay, high unemployment, which is still rising, and our antisocial behaviour figures, which has just come out, have leapt by 12%, even a year before lockdown. This is not the time to keep a swimming baths closed for 2 or 3 or 10 more years. In actual fact, the report states under 2.7 that now is an opportune moment to plan and undertake the work at the site as the site is closed to the public due to COVID-19. This was the opportune moment for us to repair the pool. In my eyes, to pull this report was an abuse of power. It appears to be wholly a political decision to deny the Eston area, as Councillor Kay just mentioned, it was in a certain part of the borough, the funds that they need, and to protect this funding for what purpose? What was more important than public health? Was it a chapel in Loftus to be demolished for £700,000? I really don't understand why we're not putting the funding there in place to fund this baths, and I'm totally against the amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carl Quatermain. Councillor Lanigan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I will speak to the amendment on Councillor Kay's. I'm absolutely appalled by this and appalled by the politics and what's been said by Councillor Jeffrey. This administration cares a great deal about its residents. And that report that Councillor Jeffrey and Councillor Quartermain is talking about at the moment was for information going into Cabinet to have a look at this. I actually went down to Eston Baths with the managers that were there, and the state of those baths was nothing short of shocking. The last administration had already spent 2.53 million on Eston Baths, sticking plasters on it. Well, that's not acceptable, and that's not acceptable to the health and well-being of the people in the Eston area. And why that can't be understood, I don't know. And I asked that we got a full report following my visit down there by experts to have a look to see exactly what we had there. And you've got the report in front of you. And it wasn't, Councillor Jeffrey, because you asked for that. That didn't come in till last week, and it wasn't until Monday of this week that we actually got the costings on that. And I was asked, following your request, if that could be sent out to all councillors, and that's exactly what happened. And why you're bringing MPs into this, I have no idea whatsoever, because the MPs are not suggesting putting any of their money into this. I've actually spoken to the foundation. This has been going on for months to see what I could do with Eston Pool and to make sure that those residents had a decent pool area to go into. And given the amount of money that the last administration had already spent on it, then I needed a full report on that. And if you actually look at the repairs and maintenance that are sat in front of you, I understand that several years ago, there was new lights had to go in above the pool. They couldn't do that because of the asbestos, and it had to go into the walls. And that, Councillor Jeffrey, was under your administration. And this pool should have been looked at years ago and not left into the state it's gone. Whether there was any maintenance done on that pool looks highly unlikely, given the report that we've got. And you're absolutely right. And I want a recorded vote on this, because where we are at the moment is we've got external walls dropping to bits, replacement of pool plant. I went down there and that water level was 18 foot in the air, and you could actually see it on the wall, and you could see all of the destruction that's gone on in there. Now, if that was so important to you at Eston, then those pumps and everything should have been moved several years ago. They hadn't. So you'd spent the 2.53 million on it, and look at the situation that we're in at the moment. So where we are at the moment, I've brought in the foundation, there's meetings underway, and where you get this idea that it's going to be 10 years before Eston gets a pool, that's not true. We are hoping to at least get a spade in the ground quickly, and at least within 18 months. And what I want to do here is bring everybody in. We look at the design, we look at everything that we've got there. There is money available. It's already, I'm looking in the pipeline, and there's meetings coming up in the next several weeks over that. And you all need to be involved in that. And you're right, and Councillor Pallister's right. This is about the health of the people down there at Eston. And it's about the health of your youngsters and the people who use that pool. And I know that Councillor Jeffrey had already been down there to have a look, and I'm quite sure she would have seen the devastation that's down there and the state of your changing rooms and everything else there. And the people of Eston deserve better. And that's what this administration is going to do. And if you want to throw £3 million at this, and then expect another pool, that's going to take us longer. If we work together with this, then we can get a new pool. And actually what's coming on that site, and it's going to be behind the pool, is you're actually going to get a village, and it's going to be a village for athletics and everything else. And this is for Eston, and this is for the people surrounding that area. This hasn't been taken lightly, Councillor Jeffrey. I cannot justify throwing £3 million of repairs. You've got asbestos in there. Why wasn't it dealt with? This hasn't happened in the last 12 months. This has been going on years, and it should have been addressed. So where we are now with that is, you're going to get a sports park, and we're going to work together with the foundation and everyone else to make sure that the people of Eston and all those residents and those children in that surrounding area has a state-of-the-art pool along with the sports park. And that's what's happening. And you can be a part of that, Councillor Jeffrey, if you want to. But I certainly cannot go with this motion that you want £3 million thrown at that in the state that it's in. That £3 million gives all that extra money to go into that brand new pool that we've got there. And it is a health and safety issue. And those baths are dangerous. And you can't expect us to go in there, because if that's what you want to do, then you're actually looking at a further year down the road, you still won't have a pool, you'll throw all this money at it, and then what? And I insist, Madam Mayor, that we get a recorded vote on this, because the people of Redcar Cleveland want to know exactly where this money is going to. We work together, we push that, and we get the spade in the ground within 18 months for a brand new pool. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. I think a recorded vote is going to be inevitable. I just want to turn to Councillor Carl Quartermain, who's indicated a point of order. I would like to know if he can come in and tell us what the breach of the council rules is he's referring to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's on Mary Lanigan's comments there regarding us bringing in the MP and for no given reason. Well, there's plenty of given reasons, because he's publicly gone on record to slate the Labour group, the Labour Party, to say that we haven't had any involvement, which isn't true. And he's also publicly gone on record to show that he is behind the Eston Baths project and will be using funding there that's been approved for MPs to use to deliver this project.
Madam Mayor, can I just come in with that? Councillor Quarterman, I haven't had that conversation with the MP, and the uplift money for the MPs cannot, and can I categorically say that, cannot be used for a new pool for Eston. It has to be something other than what we've already got in the borough, and that doesn't include a new pool. And I've had that conversation with him. So I don't know where you've got that from, and the MP hasn't given us any money whatsoever. We are going to outside sources for it. So can I just reiterate that the uplift money coming in from central government, from the MPs, cannot be used on all structures or to put in new facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. I'd like to bring in Councillor Thompson, please. We are speaking on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very interested to listen to the comments made by the proposer of the motion, and also very interested to listen to the proposed amendment. As a lay member of the council, I have had very little information made available to me to allow a reasoned debate to be undertaken. So I'm really grateful for being able to see the report. Now, the report, as I understand it, as a lay person, had quite an extensive list of works to do, not least of which was a complete rewiring of the building, coming in at some £420,000. Now, that in its own right seems to be of such significance, but only one part of £3 million that either should already have been being made and spent, or the question now is, why are we making such an investment when the building has such a limited life? In the narrative in the report, what it also said was these were the initial findings and that they could not make further recommendations without an intrusive survey. So the £3 million that we're talking about at the moment could very well be increased. I won't postulate as to what the increase might be, but without an intrusive survey, we do not know that this is the end cost. What are we given as an alternative? We're given a promise, as I understand it, that there will be a total new build, a design after consultation with local representatives, with members of the public, and that build will start within 18 months. So what about the other options we've got? If we do nothing and we wait and do all these repairs, my understanding is it will be a year before we open at least. That's not withstanding the intrusive survey results, which we've yet to see. So I have not that information available to me to help me make that decision. But I would like to pick up on the point that Councillor Pallister made, which I was going to put forward myself, and therefore in that at least we are in agreement. Whatever the interim period is going to be, we need to be very, very conscious of the needs of the residents in the area. We know it is an area of high deprivation. We do not need, do we, to reiterate the benefits of swimming, the benefits of health support in such an area of deprivation. That goes without saying. The question is, how can we mitigate against the lack of provision? So I'm very supportive of working with the company who run the facilities to say, you've got a list of members. Let's make sure that all these people who are members can be assisted in accessing all of the other facilities in the area. We've got 4 other leisure centres in Redcar Cleveland. There are other leisure centres out with the borough. So a programme of support needs to be put into place so that if I can't walk to a facility and I can't afford a bus to go, we need to be putting on transport in an organised and managed fashion, so that despite all the arguments of the facility should have been repaired, it should have been working, it isn't. We are where we are. So there's 2 options on the table. We spend money on a project that at the moment is an open-ended check. We haven't got the final figure. We have another option on the table, which is to make a clear commitment to a collective design. I'm not going to say design by committee because we know what happens with that, but there will be consultations on the design. And to move that forward as fast as ever possible. And we have a commitment that at least 18 months will see the start of that project. Therefore, I would support the amendment. I don't do it without thinking about those people who in the interim are going to suffer deprivation, and therefore there needs to be a full commitment to address that. So I would support the amendment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Craig, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sometimes where do I start? I became I stood for elections to support my community. Being a member, I support all communities, as I believe we all did. I'm actually quite appalled and actually wonder sometimes if I sit in a different council because of the accusations, the rude remarks, the selfish things that are often said about other members, our colleagues, who I believe we should work together as a team in order to achieve better for our communities, which is the most important people here. To quote Councillor Kay, I was the member who said I wouldn't take my children, I wouldn't allow my children, my family or anyone in my community to use that facility. It's absolutely atrocious. The pictures speak for themselves. But what I do believe is that the people of Eston and surrounding areas deserve far, far better than a substandard swimming bath that they currently have. They deserve, as it's been potentially put forward, they deserve a better facility. I would also agree with Councillor Thompson and Councillor Pallister with regards to ensuring that the people in the area, in the interim, have got access to facilities within other parts of the area, and I'm sure that that could be arranged. I just think that we need to stop all this bickering, stop all the accusations and all the hearsay and say so, and actually work together, and let's get this done for the people of the borough. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Craig. Councillor Bill Clark, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Mayor, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Before I start, Gizbert would dream of a sport park and a state-of-the-art pool, it really would. Anyway, like a lot of councillors, I've received a few emails about this motion, which felt like I was being lobbied for my support about a multi-million investment, perhaps like what's been happening in the recent headlines. With such a motion by Labour, anybody would have to ask, are there any by-elections coming up? This is just a vote grabber as well. We have 4 such by-elections in Gizbert and elections for the PCC and the Tees Valley Mayor. I would have thought such a motion would not be allowed because of Purdah, but here we are. Anyway, it's common knowledge that these baths have had problems before, and that was when Labour was the administration in charge. So why didn't they invest in them when they had the chance? No. What did they do? They invested in Redcar with a new leisure facility, a new walled garden for Redcar, which is about £2 million over budget, a new cinema for Redcar, and we don't talk about the Redcar Beacon. You know, now that they've depleted the council's coffers with their investment strategy, which is laughable, they now try to shift the blame over to the current administration.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Which is
Point of
typical
order.
Labour. At the local elections in 2019, Labour took a hammer at these schools, and you can see why. They apportioned blame to anyone but themselves, but the electorate knew better and they voted them out. Perhaps Councillor Jeffrey should look at what she says in an email, and I quote, "Are we actually doing any planning or prioritising? Does this council leadership have the slightest idea of how to invest for the future and tackle inequalities and give our people a fighting chance? I very much doubt it. What a disgrace." I think she's talking about when she was the leader of the last Labour administration. Now, if they did the research into the difficulties at Eston Baths, they would have known that, like patching Eston Baths up and not investing wisely, they did the same to Gizbert Baths as well. So patching up is all well and good, but it does not provide a permanent solution. You should know now that there's a queue for new leisure facilities, because 3 of the independent councillors in Gizbert have already started a process for new leisure facilities in Gizbert, including new baths. The current baths in Gizbert were opened about 53 years ago, and as I've said, they've been patched up by the past Labour administrations, and these baths are showing their age and not now what residents want and not up to the required standard. This request for new leisure facilities in Gizbert comes under a new master plan for our town, which was submitted to the local authorities some months ago and is in its early stages and being worked up as we talk. When such a master plan is completed, it will go to consultation with residents and be ready for bidding in central government's Levelling Up Fund or town deal funding. Now, I've told you, as far as I'm concerned, Gizbert's first in the queue for this kind of inward investment. So get in the queue behind us, and instead of using emotion as a political ploy, well, that's what you're trying to do some research of your own and devise a plan and come up with ideas like we have in Gizbert. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I won't be distracted by silly points of order.
Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bill Clark. I'm going to just bring in Councillor Carl Quartermain on the point of order.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I don't want to sit here keep bringing up points of order, but you know, if misinformation is being spread, I mean, it's one thing seeing it on social media when they talk about funding and spending money from the council's coffers, but you know, all the leisure facilities, and you know, Steve Newton can come in here as well if he likes, just to reiterate this information, that the funding for all the development in Redcar was from the ERDF. This was European money, not local council money. And also the Ward Garden was external funding. So, you know, it's all right, you know, him saying about doing research, you know, this is widely known. I don't understand why the councillors are spreading misinformation about funding spend. It's no wonder the residents are confused. Thank you.
All right. Councillor Kay. Councillor Kay.
Thank you. Yes, I couldn't get on. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to point out to Councillor Quartermain that what he's raising are not points of order. A point of order is when somebody is breaking the rules of the council meeting. If he thinks something is misinformation, he should really deal with that in another place or in a speech when we're dealing with this particular item. Points of order are about procedural matters, and that's why mine is a point of order, because I am correcting what he has just said. He's broken procedure. So can we stop having these points of order all the time when somebody just doesn't agree with something?
Thank you,
Councillor. To be fair, Councillor Jeffrey knows the rules. She isn't bringing up points of order, even though 10 people have spoken against her because she knows the rules. Councillor Quartermain obviously doesn't.
Thank you. Yes, I think we've all had an email today which confirms what a point of order actually is, which is a breach of the council rules of procedure or a breach of the law. So can we stick with that, please? And going back to speakers, we have Councillor Sue Jeffrey next, please.
Yeah, Chair. Madam
Oh,
Mayor,
right. Sorry, hold on.
No, I'm
sorry.
speaking on the amendment,
She's
Madam Mayor. That's acceptable.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, can I interrupt? Sorry.
Steve Newton, please. Yes, just put us right.
Sorry, just in terms of process, Madam Mayor, Councillor Jeffrey is entitled to speak, but she has a right to reply at the end of all the speakers on the amendment. So if there's if there's no other speakers on the amendment, then Councillor Jeffrey can come in. But if there are more speakers, then we need to deal with those speakers first and then bring Councillor Jeffrey in at the end before the vote takes place.
Right, so we have several more speakers. Councillor Jeffrey has to wait to speak on the amendment.
Yes, that's right. What the council procedure rules say are that if an amendment is moved, the mover of the original motion has the right of reply at the close of the debate on the amendment, but may not otherwise speak on it. So Councillor Jeffrey gets to sum up effectively on the amendment.
Right. Okay, thank you. Did you get all that, Councillor Jeffrey? So I shall move on then to Councillor Eyre.
I'll forego, Madam Mayor. My colleagues have spoke quite eloquently and on the subject, and rather than waste any more time, because I know time's cracking on, I'll forego, and I know there the Councillor Jeffrey there will sum up there with my thoughts and
okay.
Most
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Hannaway, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I keep hearing some indication of a time scale, the proverbial spade in the ground in 18 months. But there's nothing, there's no time scale in the amendment at all. And I think it would be an amendment I'd find it easier to vote for if there was some indication of when the new baths would actually be built. Is it possible to put some indication of timescale in the amendment, please?
Thank you, Councillor Hannaway. Help.
Would you like me to, can I comment on that as the mover of the amendment? It says the council agrees to immediately start work to provide a new Eston swimming bath. So it is included, there is a time scale and it's there in the amendment to immediately start work.
But not when it would finish.
Immediate means that we start straight away with the plans, etc., and then we get the spade in the ground as quickly as possible.
Councillor Hannaway, are you wishing to make an amendment to the amendment?
No, I think if we've got that, it will take forever, and yes. Also we've now got points of order about points of order, so we seem to be disappearing up some part of our own anatomy, I think. Okay. But I would just would like, but I think it would be a more viable amendment if it actually said, when after it actually gave some indication of time scale when it would be finished.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pallister, please.
Thank you.
Oh,
thank you.
Not on this. Oh, does she have? Oh, hang on a sec. Right. Okay. Sorry, Councillor Pallister. Is she allowed to speak to the amendment? Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Councillor Pallister.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At first, I absolutely agree with Councillor Lanigan about we deserve, the people of Greater Eston deserve good quality, and the Cabinet Member for Health and Housing, good quality swimming and leisure facilities. And I will work with anyone to do that and to provide that. I've not got a problem. That's what I think we have to do long term. But I just want to pick up a few points. So I know Councillor Lanigan mentioned asbestos. Now I know when I left the portfolio there was money there to sort out the asbestos in the capital budget. I'm not sure where it is or where it's gone, but the money was there. And I know I have a lot of respect for Bill, but picking up on Bill's point saying this is political. This wasn't political. At scrutiny 9 months ago, all we asked for was to get the baths open. And yes, Bill, we have patched it up, but we were dealing with 102 million. So year after year after year, we were trying to help and look after the children and most vulnerable in the community. And we were patching it up. But long term, we had plans. Scott Lloyd, when I've asked him where them plans are, he suddenly can't remember and has nothing in writing. But we did meet with everyone active, Peter and Martin and Mal Fitzgerald, upstairs in everyone active offices. It was 2:16. And we said enough is enough of patching it up. We put money in to get the asbestos removed and said we need to look at long-term investment. We did patch it up to get it open 16 to 18 weeks because we were pressurised in trying to get the swimming baths open. We must not forget, any of us, how much has been took out of the budgets. And I know the Cabinet members, particularly in adult social care and health and housing, how difficult, and children's service as well, them 3 areas, how difficult it is to manage and make sure people are looked after when you're constantly getting money taken out them budgets. So yes, I wish we had have had money to make a brand new swimming pool a few years ago. We did have plans, but we lost the council. So I think, to be fair, we did keep it open. We made sure that if there was issues with it, it wasn't long before it got put back. It got opened again. But I'd like to discuss these figures as well. They're changing all the time. You know, it's 1.7 million. It's jumped up double in the matter of a month. And I really won't accept this as political. When we didn't want a petition, we just wanted something done 9 months ago at scrutiny. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Councillor Pallister. Councillor Watts, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am just very confused and very shocked at what I've been listening to. I think it portrays what is actually happening in the council, the ugly scene residents have seen this afternoon. As a councillor, we don't know what is going on. We started this motion this afternoon with a report that the officers made recommendations of and the cabinet turned it down. End of matter. Total silence. Then out of the blue, we get Steve Kay making an amendment and suddenly Mary Lanigan's coming in with an athletic centre as well as new baths. If this has all been going on, why haven't we been included in this discussion? And I don't know how we can make a decision on something that pops up out of the blue. Sounds fantastic, but we've no costings, we've no timescales. It's everybody's dream, yes, but is it going to happen?
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Councillor Glyn Nightingale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, this is a considerably difficult decision that we've got to make. And it's so easy to launch a campaign without facts and information and make scurrilous accusations that are totally unworthy of the councillors. And that's what we've had to some extent today. And quite clearly, the Labour motion is quite illogical. It's not rational and it doesn't provide value for money. There are real complex issues in terms of what we do with the existing baths. There are real practical issues in terms of what we should be doing to provide the services that people need in the Greater Eston area. Just one or 2 points on the Labour motion. That's why we need an amendment. First of all, the timing. There's no chance of immediate repair. That will clearly take quite some time to do. It's so extensive. There's no point shaking your head, Councillor Jeffrey, because it will take a heck of a long time to do all that remedial work. Secondly, is the issue of finance. At least £3 million is going to be spent, and Councillor Thompson actually highlighted the fact that there may be more money to spend on all this. And then we've got to pay for a new scheme according to the Labour motion. There's no mention there either, Councillor Hannaway, of timing and when completion would be. Immediate means we're going to have some sort of magic wand, are we, that comes along and it results in the repair. And the report makes it quite clear the extensive work that is needed for a short-term solution. In other words, it's more money down the drain. So I think we should recognise the consensus on the council. As I've just said, this is a very difficult decision and it's a complex issue. But there comes a time when a sticking plaster is just not enough. Secondly, I think we can get consensus on the importance of providing health and swimming facilities and sport facilities for the people of Greater Eston. Thirdly, I think we can see that a replacement to do that is necessary. Even the Labour Party recognises that. Fourthly, I think there is a consensus as well on the speed that is needed for replacement. And it's the replacement that should come first, not the repairs. And the sooner, the better that can take place. That will be a real boon. And fifthly, I think it's important that we make absolutely clear that the facility that we have is, well, it won't be difficult, but is certainly superior to what is there at the moment and what was initially intended to be provided. And sixthly, I think it's absolutely rock solid essential that we work with the participants, not just in the swimming club, but also in other sporting activities. I think if we are going to be making a sensible, rational decision, we have to accept that a repair is totally out of the question and a replacement is what is needed. So I support the amendment and I think we should move forward with all speed.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale. Councillor Ovens.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would also support the amendment to go with new. We've seen that quite expensive repairs in the past have been ineffective, and it's already been highlighted that we don't know the exact condition of that until the work is undertaken, and the costs could escalate, which means a timescale will escalate. I'm sure if we concentrate on getting a new pool as quickly as possible, the people of Eston will not be left for 13 years as we in Redcar were left, and we had swimming clubs and all sorts and lots of petitions. As someone who's got some responsibility for adult health services as well, I would like to say that we talk a lot about children swimming, but we've got to remember that swimming is beneficial for people of all ages, and I want to see a good facility for the people in Eston area in as short a time as possible. With regard to alternative provision, I'm sure that can be arranged, and for many years of closure, the children in Redcar had to take a longer journey to their swimming lessons, but they did have the swimming lessons provided, and I'm sure that will be the case here. I just want to see what is the best for the Eston area, and I think doing repairs that we are uncertain about is too big a risk, when in about the same time scale we can have a really good top quality new provision. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ovens. Councillor Sue Jeffrey, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm assuming I'm summing up now. Am I on the amendment? Well, first of all, can I say
amendment? You are.
Thank you. Can I first of all say that I absolutely reject the amendment, and I do it for 3 reasons. The first is to suggest that it is putting money down a drain to provide swimming for one of the most disadvantaged 36,000 people of our borough is, as far as I'm concerned, completely unacceptable. You said that in your original statement. You said it was going to be a burden on the taxpayers, council taxpayers of Redcar, repairing our baths. Well, I'm sorry, I don't think it's a burden, and I don't think it's money down the drain. I think it's money well spent to ensure that our people can keep swimming at a time when they need to most, when our GPs are prescribing swimming for health, mental health and physical health, when our schools are just starting to get back to swimming again and many of them walk to the baths, when our swimming club wants to be able to keep its membership and keep going, when we want to ensure that the residents of the Greater Eston area who walk and use that baths are able to do so over this very important period of recovery. That is the first thing I say to you, and you know, everybody should have that top of their minds. The second thing I say to you is, it is not going to cost £3 million. This report that's just been done, it was only commissioned in the middle of March. You had over a year, you commissioned it in the middle of March. The report that tells the true story is the one that was written by officers that you rejected because the £1.7 million cost was going to be a burden on the taxpayers of Redcar and Cleveland. That's what you said, a burden on the taxpayers
assessment of the situation, isn't it?
Cleveland. And that report remains the report that should be implemented by this council, and you should give a commitment today to take it back and get it implemented. Once that money has been spent, and while that money is being spent, and I will explain to you, Councillor Kay, how you can simultaneously do the two things. You invest the money you need to invest to keep the pool open, as Labour has been doing for the last number of years to ensure we keep swimming in Greater Eston, something that you obviously don't seem able to do. And at the same time, you plan, fund and build a new baths that will take, as it said in that report, at least 2 years and probably more than that. That's what you do. And you bear the cost of those two things. You bear the cost of those two things, and you do it because it is the right thing to do for the people of Greater Eston. And that isn't about value for money. It's not about money for down the drain. It's not about being rational. It's not about any of these other things. It's not about being a burden. It's about ensuring the people of Greater Eston get their swim baths open back again. And, you know, people say, how long will it take? Well, I'll tell you how long your report from your officers said it would take to do those repairs. 3 months. 3 months. If you'd started them in March when you should have done, the baths would have been open by the summer. That's what we should be doing. And when I send an email, Councillor Clark, saying there's no planning or strategy, have you been listening to the debate here today? The leader announces at some stage we're going to have a village, a sports village. Somebody else says we're going to have this pool. Somebody else says we're going to have something else. I know nothing about any of these things. I have been given nothing, no information at all about any of these new proposals should they exist. So I can only work with the facts that are available to me. And the facts that are available to me is the report that was written by your officers in March that says we can repair that pool and get it open within 3 months within funding that's available. And at the same time, we can do what this motion says, and that is prepare and start work for a new Eston swimming baths. And I'm telling you now, you can sit in Gizbert or you can sit in Loftus and you can tell us we don't need it. But I'm telling you now, we do need it. And we need to support the original motion, reject this one and ensure that the people of Greater Eston get their swimming baths back open pronto and get a new baths that they deserve as soon as that is practicable. And can I just say about money? You know, we've been talking about money and saying, you know, well, why hasn't Labour invested this up until now? Well, Lynn said it. We haven't invested because we had a huge amount cut from our budget. We lost over 1,000 staff in the council, and our capital programme has not been augmented by grants from a Conservative government being spent to top up their Conservative MPs.
Can you close off your remarks now, please?
So I say to you, don't listen to what you're hearing from the Cabinet. Vote with your conscience, vote to support the people of Greater Eston and make sure we get these baths open again quickly and we get the new swimming baths that we deserve. That's what we should be doing, and that's what we should be doing now. Oppose the amendment, please.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. OK, we will now go to a recorded vote on the amendment. No? Yes, we are going to a recorded vote on the amendment, so I'm going to pass that over to Mr. John Sampson. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to be clear, I'm asking for a recorded vote, so I'll call out your names and terms. There's 3 possible answers.
Can you pull your microphone down there, John, please?
Yeah, there's 3 possible answers to what I'm looking for. It's either for, the amendment, against the amendment, or abstain. At this stage, you're voting on the amendment becoming the substantive action. You then have the opportunity to discuss the amendment to take it forward as a motion. But at this stage, you're voting very much for the amendment become actually the motion itself. So if I can start first with Councillor A.
Against the amendment.
Councillor Baldwin.
For.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Berry.
For.
Councillor Brady.
Against.
Councillor Brooke.
For.
Councillor Corley.
Against.
Councillor Clark R.
For.
Councillor Clark B.
For.
Councillor Craig.
For.
Councillor Cutler.
For.
Councillor Davies.
For.
Councillor Dowson. Councillor Dowson.
Shut up.
I'll return to Councillor Dowson. Councillor Fletcher.
For.
Councillor Foggo.
For.
Councillor Foley McCormack.
Against.
Councillor Gallagher.
For.
Councillor Gray.
For.
Councillor Griffiths.
For.
Councillor Hannaway.
Against.
Councillor Head.
For.
Councillor Holyoke.
Against.
Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Jeffrey G.
For.
Councillor Jeffrey S.
Against.
Councillor Jones.
No.
Councillor Jones.
Take it now.
Councillor. I'll come back to confirm Councillor Jones's position, but Councillor Kay.
For.
Councillor King.
For.
Councillor Lanigan. Councillor Lanigan. I'll return to Councillor Lanigan.
Sorry, John. For.
You're muted, John.
Councillor Lax Keeler.
For.
Councillor Lockwood.
For.
Councillor Massey.
Against.
Coming back to you, Chris.
Councillor Moody.
For.
Councillor Morgan.
For.
Councillor Nightingale G.
For.
Councillor Nightingale I.
For.
Councillor Ovens.
For.
Councillor Pallister.
Against.
Councillor Quatermain C.
Against.
Councillor Quatermain L.
Against.
Councillor Rees.
Against.
Councillor Ryder.
For.
Councillor Smith Sandra. Councillor Smith Sandra. I will return. Councillor Smith Stewart. Councillor Smith Stewart. I will return. Councillor Smith V.
For.
Councillor Thompson.
For.
Councillor Watts.
Abstain.
Councillor Wells.
For.
Councillor Westbury.
For.
Councillor Williams.
Against.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
I'll just return to the ones I passed over. So Councillor Dowson.
For.
Councillor Jones. I understand Councillor Jones has left the meeting. Councillor Smith Sandra.
For.
Councillor Smith Stewart.
4.
Thank you. I've recorded all the votes.
Right.
I'll just tally these up and pass them back to the mayor.
Thank you. So the amendment now becomes the motion, and we speak to that motion now. Oh, we need to do the time first. Yes. Okay.
Can I have a point of order, please?
Yeah.
I never heard the result of the vote.
Oh, sorry. I
did.
apologise. I thought you'd heard John Sampson say the results. I didn't realise he was on mute. Okay, sorry. I'll say the results. For the amendment 36, against the amendment 13, and 1 abstention. Now the meeting is about to exceed 3 hours in length, so I would like to suggest that we extend the meeting to finish this motion, so not giving it a time limit, but exceeding it until this motion is finished. Does anybody wish to propose that?
I'll propose, Madam Mayor, Councillor
And
Brook.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Okay, who's the proposer, please?
Councillor Brook.
Thank you, Councillor Brook, and Councillor Lanigan seconded that.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're all in agreement. Anybody disagree? Okay, thank you. Okay, so the amendment now becomes a substantive motion. I'll hand back to Steve Kerr.
Yes.
Right, so we now have a debate on the motion. I'll hand back to Steve Kay. Yes or no, or just whoever wants to speak?
Isn't it still my motion?
It's your motion, Steve. Okay, complicated things these. Okay, so who would like to speak on the motion? I have Councillor Sue Jeffrey, please.
Thanks very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you all for your support for the people of Greater Reston and their need to preserve swimming. It's really been appreciated. You obviously understand very well the problems that we have in our area and the need to get the baths back open. So, you know, it's just overwhelming the way particularly the Greater Reston independent councillors seem to think that it's perfectly all right to close the baths. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it's unacceptable. Onto the substantive motion. Well, if that's what you're agreeing, that's what you're agreeing. You know, obviously we aren't worth that million and bit that was needed to get the baths open again. Obviously we're not worth that where we are. It's all right for everywhere else, but it's not all right for us. Well, fine, that's great. Let's carry on like that. What I would say is that if you're going to close our baths, which you obviously are going to do, close our baths, then we need to make sure that our people have access to swimming. And I think Councillor Lynn made some proposals about the way that access could be provided. I think we also had some commitments from the leadership that they would involve us in these proposals and how they're going to be developed. Well, that would make a nice change, but if that's going to happen, let's see it happen. So let's see us being involved in the discussions before the report comes to Cabinet in June. Let's see us talking to the communities. Let's see that report include proper proposals for how the people of Greater Eston are going to have access to swimming while their baths is closed for the next 2 years. Let's see all that. Let's see how you're going to ensure and secure and maintain the future of Eston Swimming Club. Let's see all that in that report. Let's see that, and then you'll be working to your word. If you don't do those things, you aren't, and you're conning the people of Greater Eston, and I wait to see. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Lanigan next, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Jeffrey, I don't like your aggression with this, and this is absolutely, it's not necessary. And that report was done, it came in last Friday, and the funding for what it was going to cost, we got on Monday. I had every intentions of involving anybody, but all I've had for the last 7 or 8 weeks is things coming through from Facebook, from you and from most of your followers that you've got down there. This is not helpful, and if you think for 1 minute that I don't care about the people of Eston, you've got another thing coming, and that is exactly why I brought this report, so that we could see this isn't about you, it's not about me, it's about the residents, and we've got to ensure that they get the very best, and that's exactly what I intend to do. And preliminary talks have already started. They're not at any level yet because I needed to see what was going to happen today. And I have a meeting next week with the foundation coming in and with our officers to move this forward as quickly as we possibly can. And Councillor Clark is quite right, and we're in the early stages for Gizbert. Something that you should have done. You should have picked up, and instead of sticking plasters at Eston, you should have done something about it. And I know that you were down there, and those baths are an absolute disgrace. And you should never, and your administration left it like that. And we can't keep going back over old ground. We move forward. And if you want to move forward together with me and the rest of the council, that's absolutely fine. But I need you to be positive on this and not keep coming in with politics or accusations or whatever it is. It's not about you. It's about the resident, and it's not about me, and it's not about my cabinet. It's about the residents getting the best. And what you've got down at Eston is a health hazard. And you know that because you were down there having a look. If you want to work with me, that's absolutely fine. And if you don't, that's fine. Lynn's already actually said that she wants to, and I absolutely welcome that. So for goodness sake, let's work together and get this done as quickly as we can. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Councillor Jeffrey, you have requested a point of personal explanation. Can you please restrict your remarks just to that?
I certainly will, Madam Mayor. Councillor Lanigan referred to me as being aggressive and aggression. Can I explain to her that this isn't about aggression? This is about passion. It's about passion for the people of the Greater Eston area and for their swimming baths. And for her to suggest in some way that this is some sort of political campaign, it's a misinterpretation and a misunderstanding of everything that I have done over the last year and a half. And it's really interesting, isn't it, that already she's telling us, she's backtracking and telling us that there's no ideas, that there's nothing at any level yet, and we're going to have to wait. Well, let's watch this space.
Okay,
Madam Mayor, can I actually come back on that? Councillor Jeffrey, I said nothing of the sort. I've already had me.
Just wrote it down, Councillor Lanigan. It's
Don't
exactly what you said.
Okay, I'm going to draw a line under this discussion. Thank you. And we're going to move on to the next speaker. Councillor Kay.
Now, do I get to sum up on this one or not?
Oh, sorry, Councillor Kay. You can sum up on this at the end.
Yes,
we'll come back to you.
Thank you
for the reminder. Councillor Thompson. Councillor
On mute, Billy.
Councillor Thompson.
Right, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It's a good learning experience, this, is it not? I would like to just make some comments about the motion now, and in part it's reiterating what I said on the amendment. We have to make an immediate announcement as an authority that there will be a new swimming baths constructed for the Eston area. And I think we all ought to share in the delight in making that announcement. We need to be understanding, however, that there are no timelines actually agreed yet. Discussions, the design, they're yet to take place, hopefully starting tomorrow. But in the interim between today and when the grand opening is, we need to make sure and ensure that those people who would have availed themselves of the facilities at Eston are not in any way disenfranchised. Now, there are people who can cycle, and I'm sure they will find alternative venues. There are people with private vehicles, and I'm sure they can find alternative venues. The alternative venues don't just exist in the borough, and we've already heard mention of Berwick Hills. So there are people undoubtedly within quite easy reach of Berwick Hills, but perhaps not as easy reach for Loftus. And Loftus is a wonderful facility, so hopefully some people can get there. The question then is, how are they going to do that? So I already mentioned that everyone active has a membership list, does it not? And therefore we should be able to identify immediately all these people who need either help or signposting where they can get help. There may be new members, and people may be dissuaded from joining because there is not an actual physical facility in the area. They should not be dissuaded from joining, because they should be advised that there will be support if they require it to get them to where they would like to be. So my ask is that we have a commitment clearly declared, not just that we're going to build a new facility, but in the interim, every reasonable support will be given to those who are currently deprived. So in an area which we all know suffers deprivation, this further aspect of deprivation needs to be addressed. So my ask of the proposer of this motion is, in his summing up, he takes into account these points and commits to acting upon them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Nightingale, please. Councillor Glyn Nightingale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'm very disappointed in the response of Councillor Jeffrey. I don't think I've ever heard a speech quite like that before, and I really don't think that that is doing any great service to local democracy. I think it is time that that Councillor Jeffrey in particular learn how to do opposition. I think it is important when you're in opposition not to propose something that you would never possibly do if you were in control. When she was the leader of the council, I thought she was a sensible leader and was a very effective leader. But what has happened this afternoon is a diminution of that respect. I'm pretty sure that the Labour group would not have proposed what they were proposing if they had been in control. However, let us move forward. I think the council, the cabinet and the council now needs to be determined to do a number of things. And what we need to do, first of all, is actually work together, and especially with the users of the sporting facilities in Greater Eston. I secondly think that we should make sure that the timescale is pretty strict and pretty rigorous, and is ensuring that the facilities that the people of Greater Eston, which includes Nunthorpe and Ormsby as well, by the way, as well as TS6, have the chance of using far superior facilities than there at the moment. I think, and secondly, we have to make absolutely sure that the site that we choose is not going to be subjected to the problems that the current site has, particularly with flooding. And it's the first time that's been mentioned this afternoon. We've made our decision, and I now think it is time to go ahead and get something done. And if we can work together to do that, and forget all the politicking that has gone on so far. In fact, I think even Councillor Jeffrey seemed to have misunderstood what politics is about. It was politics, and it will be politics. Politics is about where we have to make a decision and there are different opinions, and we come to the conclusion through hopefully democratic means, which is what we've done today. So let's move forward and let's get something done.
Thank you, Councillor Nightingale. You have made a request for a personal explanation. Councillor Jeffrey, are you going to?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, and I'm
sorry.
I'm sorry I have to intervene again, but I do, because people are, or Councillor Nightingale in this instance, is making assumptions about my motivation, which is completely wrong. And the email that came out this afternoon said that was exactly what I was able to challenge if I wanted to. The fact is that this is not about me, it's not about politics, it's not about a political campaign, it's about keeping the baths open in Eston. And I would be very grateful if you want to stop further personal explanations, if you could ask members not to constantly try and put some of the motive on my words. Thank you.
Can I make a personal explanation, Madam Mayor?
I think we need to move on, Councillor Nightingale.
I never mentioned Councillor Jeffrey's motivation. All I said was, she said it was not political, and I made it quite clear what political really is. And it's a time we got a bit more mature views on this matter. I fully accept that she has every entitlement to make a political campaign. I've nothing against that whatsoever. But let's recognise that when it's there, it is a political campaign, and she's every entitlement to do that. It's nothing to do with her motives of being denigrated in any way, shape or form. It's an honourable thing for people to do, to be in opposition.
Thank you.
I've done it very many years, of course.
You have. Councillor Pallister, please.
Sorry, yeah, sorry, I was just taking it off mute. Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, why we keep saying that Councillor Jeffries is making this a political campaign, when I explained 9 months ago at scrutiny, she was asking the cabinet member for health and housing when we were going to get the baths open. It wasn't political. No residents would have been signing petitions. It wouldn't have been, this wouldn't have been to council a motion. Nothing would have been out in the public domain, because very few residents actually listen to scrutiny anyway. So why we keep saying this is a political campaign, it isn't. It's what she said. She was passionate, and we're all passionate, and that's why it's come to this, and it's come to council. Because when the MP and other councillors seen how much it meant to the people of Eston, South Bank, Grangetown, Eston, Teesville, Normanby, then you did listen to it, and you did take notice. And this is why we're here today. And I'm also sick of people saying we didn't do enough for the baths. We've all forgetting how much was taken from our budgets. We kept it open every time it closed. We had plans in 2016 to actually start looking at long-term investment. So I really think if the political side of what you're saying that Councillor Sue Jeffries is making today, I think there's been a lot of political comments saying that the Labour Council didn't care. Yes, we did. We kept it open. It was back open within 16 weeks of closing, and we did have plans.
Okay, thank you. I think Councillor Hannaway may be next. Did you ask to speak, Councillor Hannaway?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think earlier I heard Councillor Thompson say that there was no current timeline, but earlier in the meeting, the leader of the council said to us, we can have spades in the ground in 18 months. So I'll vote for the motion on the understanding of that the information that we've been given is that there will be spades in the ground by October 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannaway. Councillor Lanigan, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to reply to Councillor Pallister and then Councillor Hannaway. Councillor Pallister, I know that you're passionate about this, but when looking at the reports and looking back over the last administration that we had, you actually spent 2.53 million on Eston and it didn't improve. And I'm quite sure that you are aware of that. And given the state that we've got at the moment, it's not healthy for your residents, nor is it healthy for us to stick sticking plasters on it. And the report that's actually come in is over £3 million to make that safe. And then you've still got the old building there. And I'm asking that you work alongside us to get this done. Councillor Hannaway, I will give you a commitment that within 18 months, we will make sure that we've got a spade in that ground. That's a huge commitment from me. There is funding available. It's got nothing whatsoever to do with the MP. And I don't know why this came or why that was brought to the fore. I am in talks to get some funding that will be brought to full council. Any of the councillors that are interested in this, we will work together because this is about the residents of Eston. This isn't about anybody else. It's trying to get this back where it should have been several years ago. And I think there was a chance missed then when you had problems with asbestos and you had problems with all sorts of issues. And it should have been addressed then. However, that's gone. We move forward and we move forward together.
Thank you, Councillor Lanigan. Okay, so now we can go back to Councillor Kay to sum up, please. Councillor Kay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I must agree with Councillor Nightingale, actually. I think it was Aristotle who said, man is a political animal. And I'm assuming that he meant mankind by that. And in fact, let's be honest, we wouldn't stand for council if we weren't, to some extent, political. So I don't mind people doing things for political reasons. It depends whether I agree with their politics or not, I suppose. So really, I don't think we shouldn't be ashamed of being political. That's how society moves forward. And luckily in the West, we do it on a democratic basis, which means that there are checks and balances in place. So yes, I must say I agree with Councillor Nightingale, and I don't know why people get the knickers in a twist when somebody says something political. Right. You know, I desperately want new baths for Eston as cabinet member. My family came from Eston. They're buried in the cemetery, and I bet I was the first of anybody on the council, officers as well, to have a swim in Eston baths because I lived nearby in Ormsby when they were opened. So, you know, I don't want to do Eston down. But, you know, we've got to be realistic about this and sensible, as I said earlier, and balance the cost against the outcome. You know, this should be a time for rejoicing rather than squabbling amongst each other. We're making a decision to open a new swimming pool for Eston. You know, let's, you know, look at the bright side of life rather than whinging and whining about wanting things that are really unattainable. And I think the vote showed that common sense came to the fore and people realise we just can't, I'll be careful what I say here, we can't spend on something that isn't giving us value for money at the point of delivery. Yes, I think we can look at the Councillor Philip Thompson. You know, I'm not going to make decisions on the hoof because obviously I'll have to discuss this with my colleague, but I think we can try to do something for the people who need assistance to be transported to another pool or another leisure centre or whatever. But, you know, I will be supporting, all I can say is when we have our discussions, I will be supporting the idea behind this, but I can't really make any concrete promise at this stage. So I'm assuming now, Madam Mayor, that we're going to have another vote, are we, on what is now the substantive motion? Can I therefore propose the substantive motion?
Seconded.
Okay, apologies there, just clarifying something. Okay, so that's all speakers, and Councillor Kay has summed up. Do we need to go to a formal vote on this? Is there anybody?
I did move it, Madam Mayor, that I moved it, and, and Councillor Nightingale seconded the substantive motion.
Right, okay, thank you. So now we need to vote. So do we need to go to a roll call, or are members happy to pass it, to move it on block? Is there anybody disagreeing, wishing to vote against this substantive motion?
Madam Mayor, can I just make a point to say that I think we should be heard to vote. Thank you.
Okay, then we'll go to a recorded vote again then. Thank you. All right, I shall pass you back to Mr. John Sampson then. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will go down the list of names and I'm looking for or against or abstain. So 4 would be for the substantive motion, which effectively was the amendment to the original motion. And I think Councillor has put that in the chat, so to be clear to everyone. So when I call your name out, please vote for, against or abstain. If I call your name out and you're not there, I will return to you at the end of the list. Councillor A.
For.
Councillor Baldwin.
For.
Councillor Barnes.
For.
Councillor Berry.
For.
Councillor Brady.
For.
Councillor Brooke.
For.
Councillor Corley.
For.
Councillor Clark R.
For.
Councillor Clark B.
For.
Councillor Craig.
For.
Councillor Cutler.
For.
Councillor Davis.
For.
Councillor Dowson.
For.
Councillor Fletcher.
For.
Councillor Foggo.
For.
Councillor Foley McCormack.
For.
Councillor Gallagher.
For.
Councillor Gray.
For.
Councillor Griffiths.
For.
Councillor Griffiths, thank you. Councillor Hannaway.
For.
Councillor Head.
For.
Councillor Holyoke.
Abstain.
Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Jeffrey G. Councillor Jeffrey G. I will come back to Councillor Jeffrey G. Councillor Jeffrey S.
Abstain.
Councillor Jones. Councillor Jones. Councillor Kay.
For.
Councillor King. Councillor King.
For.
Councillor Lanigan.
For.
Councillor Lax-Keeler. Councillor Lax-Keeler. Councillor Lockwood.
For.
Councillor Massey.
For.
Councillor Moody. Councillor Moody. Councillor Morgan.
For.
Councillor Nightingale G.
For.
Councillor Nightingale I.
For.
Councillor Ovens.
For.
Councillor Pallister.
For.
Councillor Quarterman C.
For.
Councillor Quartermain L.
For.
Councillor Rees.
Abstain.
Councillor Ryder.
For.
Councillor Smith Sandra.
For.
Councillor Smith Stewart.
For.
Councillor Smith V.
For.
Councillor Thompson.
For.
Councillor Watts.
For.
Councillor Wells.
For.
Councillor Westbury.
For.
Councillor Williams.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
There's just a few I need to return to, which I'll do now. So, Councillor Jeffrey G.
It's left the meeting.
Right, left. Councillor Jones.
It's left the meeting.
Councillor Lax-Keeler.
Left the meeting.
Thanks, Cliff. Councillor Moody.
He's left the meeting.
Yeah. So I think I will run through and add these up, but I have got everyone in 4 and 3 abstentions with no one against, but I will confirm the numbers. Thank you. I'll pass back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, John. So the results of that vote were 44 votes for and 3 abstentions. So the substantive motion has been passed. Thank you. Thank you for your attendance today.
Madam Mayor, can I raise a point of order? It's to do with the questions. Are Councillor Hannaway and Councillor Wells happy to have a written reply?
Well, that was what I was about to say.
Oh, sorry.
I was about to say there would be unfinished business, such as the questions, will be carried forward to the next meeting, unless those asking the questions wish for them to be answered in writing.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to have a written reply, as long as Councillor Nightingale doesn't mind a written supplementary.
Okay, thank you.
And likewise from me.
And Councillor Wells too. Okay, thank you. So we will draw to a close this council meeting. Thank you all for your attendance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. Well